Good evening and welcome to this meeting of full council. I'm Councillor Tony Vickers, Chairman of West Berkshire Council. The meeting is being live streamed via YouTube, so members of the public are able to follow the proceedings. Council members are present in the council chamber for this meeting. Any members of council who are in attendance remotely will be entitled to speak and ask questions when invited to do so by myself. The officers in attendance are the Chief Executive, Joseph Holmes, the Executive Director for Resources, Sarah Clark, also the Monitoring Officer, the Executive Director for Adult Social Care, Paul Coe, the Executive Director for Children and Family Services, Anne-Marie Dodds, and the Executive Director for Place, Claire Lawrence. And Sarah Clark, as I said, is also attending as our Monitoring Officer and will be my legal advisor to the meeting. I'm assisted by Stephen Chard, the clerk to the meeting, and by Thomas Radbourne as the Zoom host. And welcome to Honorary Alderman in attendance. Before we start this evening's meeting, I need to take the opportunity to remind members that we are subject to the Council's Code of Conduct, which requires us to uphold certain standards, including, importantly, respect. Members across the chamber may not always agree with one another, but I would ask that in our disagreements, we endeavour to always be respectful of others' views. I'd also like to ask that members of the public attending this meeting do not interrupt or speak outside of any designated speaking slots. Also, please refrain from approaching councillors unless you are invited to do so. During the meeting, when a motion has been proposed and seconded, I will ask the monitoring officer to conduct the vote by a show of hands. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Monitoring officer, have we any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chairman. We have received apologies from councillors Dennis Bennyworth, Owen Jeffrey, Paul Kander, Jane Langford, Janine Lewis, Jeff Mays and B. Loco. Councillors Jeff Mays and Tom McCann will be in attendance via Zoom. We've also received apologies from Honorary Alderman Graham Bridgman, Paul Bryant, Hilary Cole, Adrian Edwards, Graham Jones, Rick Jones, Alan Law and Andrew Rolls. I don't know if there are any further apologies from the floor. No, Chairman.
Item 2, Chairman's remarks. Well, the Vice Chair and I have been very busy recently. I've attended 24 events since we met on the 17th of July. And I thank all of those members and heads of service who have invited us to events for doing so. I'm going to list them all tonight briefly, so you can see that the spread is right across the district, especially outside of our towns, which have their mayors. I thank members, as I say, for doing this. It's far more than perhaps we used to, but the team is overstretched, and I'd like to thank Ben Ryan in particular, who's my main support. So firstly, we had at Boxford a summer picnic and a walk. We then had a fire engine official handover in Newbury, Jubilee Year of Hope walk with the Mayor of Reading from Holybrook Parish into Reading. The opening of the Camellia Club at Fair Close Centre. I attended the Summer Reading Challenge in Newbury Library and the September Citizen Ceremony, which we've had quite a lot of these ceremonies lately. And the Vice Chair attended her first one this month. The Ridgeway Walk, organised by the Chief Executive and Countryside team, and thanks to all staff and others who helped raise funds through sponsorship for my charity, Good Hope Farm. Then we had the VJ80 Peace Talk Symposium, hosted by Royal British Legion on the anniversary of the decision by Japan to surrender. We then had the VJ Day Memorial Service, 25th anniversary of the opening of Tidmarsh Millennium Green. We had the opening of a board game cafe in Newbury, not far from here. The centenary celebration big outdoor party for the Ackland Hall Recreation Hall in Coldash. Visit with my consort and the Chair of Health Scrutiny, Councillor Martha Vickers, to stroke care in Woolhampton. 2 new, either new or refurbished sets of all-weather sports pitches at Henwick and Kenwick School. I think there's another one coming up somewhere in my programme. We had celebration of 25 years of Greenham Common being open to the public at the Creative Commons event organised by the Corn Exchange. I then attended the collation and induction, technical terms for bringing in a new vicar to a Church of England parish, and this time it was Greenham. I attended the CPRE Berkshire annual meeting at Englefield House. I actually was the oldest runner in the first Victoria Park run. I shall go there again. It's what I need to get fit again. And we then had ABC to Read, an excellent charity, and I'll come back to that, a fundraising concert in Reading by the Reading Phoenix Choir. Princess Royal then came to do the formally opening of a new care home for the Friends of the Elderly in Calcott. We had the magnificent Berkshire Judicial Service the next day. That really is one to look forward to if you're chairman. The 10th anniversary of City Arts here in Newbury, launch of the splendid Kennet Valley Wetland Reserve project in Hungerford. I say launch, they need £1.5 million to turn that into reality, but it will be a real jewel in our crown. And I also recorded my reflections for Trans Day of Remembrance next month at the invitation of Newbury Pride. And before I ask the Vice Chairman to report on recent events that she's attended, I would like to share my reflections on just one of these events, but also on another that I didn't attend because I wasn't invited. But I feel I should have been. And I feel you ought to know about that and share, I hope, share my concerns. So it's ABC to Read, and to give their full title, it stands for Assisting Berkshire Children to Read. And their mission is to transform children's lives by working with schools to support development of literacy skills. Volunteer reading mentors in primary schools are trained and supported by them. And they work across the whole of Berkshire and only Berkshire. So it was a puzzle why I was the only member of the chain gang to attend on the 27th of September in Reading, St Lawrence's Church. This was a contrast to what the Vice Chair and myself have been experiencing so far this council year. And several times we found out late on, or even after the event, that the mayors of the 5 other Berkshire unitary councils had been invited to an all Berkshire event, whereas the chairman of this district council had not, because we're not a borough. We think this reflects badly on our district. It means that your communities and residents and the charities operating in West Berkshire, especially those operating mainly in rural communities, are not being represented on some civil occasions. And this isn't being taken personally by us, but it affects those of you whose wards aren't entirely within the towns. Often the mayors of Thatcham, Newbury and Hungerford are invited to events outside of West Berkshire as mayors. We don't have a problem with that. But when we're not invited as the equivalent of the mayor of a borough in our district, we think that is not reflecting well on this council. So I'm told by officers that this will be addressed in the forthcoming local government reorganisation. But meanwhile, I have asked for some discussion about how we can correct this situation tactfully. Moving on, I'm very grateful for all the support I'm getting. And I would like, he's not here tonight, he might be live streaming. We have a new T-level student from Newbury College supporting our team and working as a T-level, I think is a sort of pre-apprentice situation. And I believe we're employing several across the council. But Gabriel Hood is ours, and we look forward to helping him learn about how a council operates. So, would the Vice Chairman like to say a little bit about her events before we move on to the rest of the agenda?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I attended the 85th anniversary of the Battle of Britain and laid a wreath on our behalf. I attended community cricket matches held at Falkland and presented the award medals. I was at the opening of a teenage den, which is a lovely thing. I also took part in the citizenship ceremony. Chairman was not available. I opened a sensory garden with the Mayor of Newbury at one of our care homes. But perhaps the most important thing and most enjoyable for me was that I went to Reading University for the King's Awards for voluntary service nominations for 2025. And the Lord Lieutenant presented 15 certificates to organisations within Berkshire who were all nominated for this award. The final choice, of course, is out of his hands. It goes up to the royal family or wherever, whatever. But it was a lovely thing. And to hear of all the voluntary work carried out by numerous volunteers within Berkshire was a great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. Just on that last point, the King's Award for Voluntary Service it's a process that takes a long time working up from your level as individual wards. I'm looking for the nominations now to come to me for West Berkshire, the deadline being the 1st of December. So please think about charities that might be working in your ward that deserve to be given some national recognition. The deadline, as I say, is only about 6 weeks away. I've got one that I'm hoping to put forward, but we are underrepresented in Berkshire as a district when you look at the statistics on this. Moving on, item 3, minutes. Yes, I would like to propose that the minutes of the meeting on, we've got 2 meetings to do. First is the 17th of July, the last ordinary council meeting. I will propose from the chair that these be signed as a correct record. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Drummond. Are there any amendments from the floor? There being none, could the monitoring officer please conduct a vote by show of hands?
Thank you, Chairman. Can I please ask members, all members in favour of approving the minutes to raise their hands? Thank you. Any against or abstentions? Thank you. I can confirm that those minutes have been approved, Chairman.
And the second set of minutes is for the extraordinary council meeting on the 11th of September. Again, I will move that we sign those as a correct set of record, a correct record. Who will second that one, please? Thank you, Councillor Abbs. Any amendments? Could we have a vote then, monitoring officer?
Thank you. Can I please ask members in favour of approving those minutes to raise their hands? Thank you. Any against or abstentions? Thank you. Chairman, I can confirm that those minutes have been approved.
Thank you. Item 4 is the declarations of interest. I'll ask the monitoring officer if there have been any.
Thank you, Chairman. We have received a number of declarations. We have received a declaration from Councillor Chris Reid in relation to agenda item 5. That has been declared as a personal interest, which is not going to affect Councillor Reid's ability to participate and vote on the matter. And also from it's not a declaration of interest. I believe Councillor Gaines will notify the meeting of a relevant matter.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer. In the interest of transparency, I would like to declare the fact that I was previously a member of the Hungerford Neighbourhood Development Plan Steering Group. I resigned from that over 2 years ago, and since that time, the plan has been considered at an independent examination. I've taken advice from the Council's Monitoring Officer and am satisfied that I have no personal or other interest, which I will be considering on the basis of the current proposals that are fully detailed in the report at item 10 of this evening's agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't know if there are any further interests to be declared from the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Just for information and for guidance, there are a number of members in the chamber who are in receipt of a local government pension. And given the motion from Councillor Marsh later, we'd like some advice on our position, please.
Members may be wondering about that, but up until I think about 10 years ago, we were allowed and indeed in some cases encouraged to set an example by joining the pension scheme, but that was deemed illegal. I think the current government is going to bring it back, but that's how we have this situation.
I will check the rules. I think it won't impact the pensions. The proposal will not impact the pensions directly, but in the event that that is a disclosable pecuniary interest, members will on that basis be advised to leave the chamber, because that would potentially give rise to some significant implications for those members. But I will have a look at that before we get to that item so that I can advise members appropriately.
Moving on to agenda item 5, petitions. May I ask if there are any petitions from members to be presented to council? We have 3. We also have the petition from a member of the public, Mr. Garvey. The Constitution requires that we do deal with all petitions within 30 minutes. That is going to be difficult because, as I will explain, we are going to debate Mr. Garvey's petition tonight. But first of all, can I ask Councillor Barnett to just briefly introduce your petition?
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to actually take up my 3 minutes, or do you want me just to formally introduce it?
Just the minimum that's necessary, because we have a busy evening.
Okay, I will not take up the full period that I'm obviously able to take up. I will just outline the petition quickly, if I can find the petition. Good evening to everyone and all present tonight. The petition I'm presenting tonight is regarding the request for a pedestrian crossing along Hambridge Road between the entrance to the private road to the racecourse and the access road to the north side and to the racecourse station. Since the opening of the new Hector's Way link road, the traffic from west, i.e. Sainsbury's roundabout, to the east towards Thatcham has increased enormously, resulting with residents of Hambridge Road who park at the approved parking zone on the south side of the road having difficulty in crossing, when either to access their vehicles or obviously to go and drop it off and go return to their house. And of course, some of these people are elderly, some are disabled, and also there's many parents with children in prams. I spent 10 minutes waiting to cross at 1800 hours the other night, and so I've experienced a problem firsthand. Furthermore, pedestrians coming and going to the racecourse station have similar problems, not forgetting pedestrians walking to and from the town to the racecourse on race days. To add the continual stream of cars and vans, the road is now being used by many HGVs, not even though it's approved route. They should technically be course going back to the Hambridge Road crossroads. In fact, the extra use of this road by HGVs must have been attributing to that water main burst the other day, when some of you probably recognised the weekend the road was actually closed. For members not aware where Hambridge Road is, it's actually leading off of Hambridge Road crossroads, a back road towards Sainsbury's. And if you want to know further, it's along the stretch between the 2 speed cameras that many people remark about the speed cameras. And all
I think we'd like you to draw your
Yes.
introduction to a close, please.
Sorry, would you like me to close that? Yes.
Yeah.
And
Good.
that petition is actually from 50 residents of Hambridge Road and the Junction Terrace. Thank you.
If you could hand that to an officer this evening, I accept that on behalf of the council. From Councillor McCrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The petition I have here says, "We, the undersigned, object to Reading Borough Council's proposal to extend its boundary to include Theale. Theale is a self-contained village with a clear physical separation from Reading and its suburbs. Theale village caters for all day-to-day requirements for its residents. The proposed takeover would threaten the future of Theale Parish Council, which provides a local voice and valuable local facilities such as the playground, recreation ground and playing field." The petition has 406 names, and I will also be presenting a copy of it to Reading Borough Council's Policy Committee next month.
Thank you, Councillor McCrow. So we now have Councillor Shakespeare.
Similarly to Councillor McCrow, I'm bringing in a petition on behalf of the people of Pangbourne, Tidmarsh and Sulham parishes, rejecting the attempt by Reading Council to annex those parishes. The petition is that we, the undersigned, support the campaign to remain part of West Berkshire. We call on Reading Borough Council to stop their land grab attempt. It's signed by 582 residents.
Thank you very much, Councillor Shakespeare. Moving on to the petition by Mr. Garvey, who I believe is present. The way we're going to handle this, because it's eligible for debate tonight, as the number of signatures exceeded 1,500, the petition will be debated as follows, in line with the petition's appendix in the Constitution. Councillor Stuart Gourley will be invited to set out the background to the issue to Council for up to 5 minutes. Petition organiser attending via Zoom will then have up to 5 minutes to present the petition to the meeting. Members may ask questions of both parties following their submissions. We'll allow 5 minutes in total for that. Then the council may decide to not take the action sought in the petition or commission any further investigation or report to the executive on the matter. And a proposer and seconder will be sought before putting a motion to the vote. I have decided to allow a period of 30 minutes in which to consider this petition, i.e. not taking account of the time that was taken presenting the other three. So we will have 30 minutes in total for the debate, and members will be invited to speak having regard to proportionality. So can we please start the clock on Councillor Gourley?
Thank you, Chair. First off, I'd like to thank the residents who took the time to put these petitions together, and for those who signed them to raise their concerns with the council. It's a critical part of local democracy and governance. I hope over the next few minutes I can reassure residents and petitioners and answer some of the asks and continue to explain my position on this topic. Let me start with the asks of the petition, and due to time constraints, I'll answer the substantive petition ask and try to cover off a couple of the other questions that were posed in a social media graphic, and I'll be happy to follow up with others in writing. So the first ask was to pause the reduced collections until support measures are fully implemented. So whilst I understand the concern, we remain committed to supporting residents who may be finding the change challenging. And while I don't believe pausing collections would be the most effective solution, I want to reassure everyone that support is available and continues to be offered as soon as we're made aware of a need. The data so far shows that most households are managing well, which is encouraging. To change approach at this point and achieve our aims, it would cost over £3 million to do so, plus the impact of the Labour government's new legislation at approximately £1.4 million. Point two, which was a further question asked, which was to publish the criteria for larger bins that require it. We've been clear at all times that to support those with large families, young children in nappies or medical needs, all those groups will be supported. Specific details were published at the last executive meeting on the 25th of September as part of members' questions and can be found on the website. A further question that was followed up as part of the petition process was to disclose what percentage of applications for additional support were approved by West Berks Council. So 3% of all households subject to this change have applied for extra support. Extra capacity has been granted to 585 houses, and this includes larger bins or second bins. Alongside this, we've also supported residents by shipping over 27,000 extra recycling containers, which is significantly higher than the whole of 2024. One of the other asks was to publish the EQIA for the policy change. So that's the Equality Impact Assessment. And that for free weekly bin collections was included with the published 25-26 revenue budget papers in February 25 and can be found in the website. So I appreciate I can't answer all of the further follow-up questions that were asked due to time, but I will get back to those in writing. So I'd also like to take the opportunity to remind residents why we're doing this change. The key objectives to this change are clear. To improve our recycling rate, reduce the amount of black bin waste produced. We're in the top 10% worst waste producing areas in the country. It's also to protect essential services and deliver value for money to the local council taxpayer. And let me just expand on that a second. In 27-28, this Labour government will introduce new legislation related to the emissions trading scheme. This change will mean if we carry on as we are, there will be a significant tax bill coming our way, roughly a further £1.4 million per year landing with the taxpayer. To put that into context, that's 20 highways resurfacing schemes, several more football pitches, and many other schemes to improve West Berkshire for residents. And I'm sure we all agree we would rather make changes now to avoid this expense to the taxpayer and continue to invest in the excellent services and infrastructure here in West Berkshire. Don't forget, however, this change is also about the right thing for our environment, to do the right thing for our environment, recycling more and thinking more about the waste we produce as a society. Early signs are positive. We are collecting 20 tonnes more a week of food waste now since we announced the changes. We've shipped over 27,000 more recycling and food waste containers. We're seeing recycling tonnage go up, black bin waste coming down and compared to the 6-month average. And finally, early assessment shows that we're seeing excess bags at the curbside at less than 1% of all households presenting for collection. But I appreciate it's early days and we will continue to monitor our key metrics against our objectives, and we've already committed to come back to scrutiny later next year or early next year. With all this being said, I understand the concerns raised. I am, after all, a resident of West Berkshire, a family of 4, 2 young children, 3 indoor cats, and a medical condition that requires me personally to dispose of not particularly nice waste I'd rather not have to on a regular basis. But I am confident that I and my family can make this change. Otherwise, I wouldn't propose it. It's as simple as that, really. But I also appreciate that everyone, every household and every family is different. But we are here to help. And I want to make this change a success. And as a council, we are here to support. And I believe we have demonstrated
bring your
how we're
remarks to an end,
supporting
please?
tonight and doing more than most other free weekly collecting councils. So quickly, just to recap, we've introduced further recycling at the curbside. Pots, tubs and trays and batteries. We've offered extra capacity or second bins, offering assisted collection to those who are less able, offering unlimited and free amounts of food and recycling containers, food caddy liner giveaways of over 6,000 now given away, 50 outreach sessions across West Berkshire with 1,200 attendees and 2 excellent household waste recycling centres. But just to finish up, leadership is tough. Leadership isn't always about making the popular decision, it's about making the right decision.
Thank you very much. Have we got Mr. Garvey on Zoom yet?
He's just being promoted to a panelist, Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Garvey. Mr. Garvey, you have 5 minutes to speak and I will give you a 1-minute warning. Okay, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman. Good evening, Council. I launched this petition earlier in the year to ask the Council to pause the reduced bin collections element of the new waste strategy. At the time, it was to pause the start of that process. To be clear, myself and almost everyone in the district wants to see better recycling. As Councillor Gourley pointed out, we are so terrible at it. I want the Council to be more ambitious on recycling, but a service cut without the promised support measures will not in itself deliver better recycling rates and in the short term may make things worse. The petition asked the Council to pause reduced collection until such time that support measures were in place for those who needed it and a proper plan was in place. It asked for the Council to publish the criteria for a larger bin to be published. The Council have told us on social media that they can't reveal the criteria because residents may abuse it. I was told in this chamber there is no set criteria. What is the truth? Other residents have not been given this information despite submitting a Freedom of Information request. If it really doesn't exist, please create it so that we can see it and publish it on the website. The petition called for the council to publish how you determine who gets the support that you previously promised to residents. Why do you refuse to publish this determination process? The council promised additional support, but everyone I see that's posting on social media who's requested a larger bin has been denied. Before I go into the next part, you mentioned that 500 people have got new bins. Was that before or after the changes in policy to go to 3-week collections were announced? Perhaps that was the plan all along, dangle an imaginary carrot, and when support isn't provided, just hope they find a way to get on with it anyway. How many applications have been made for a larger bin since the reduced collections were announced? So since the reduced collections were announced, and how many applications have been approved since the changes were announced? Can the council publish the equality impact assessment for this decision? Noted your response. Had the council planned for this change in good time, involved residents in the whole process, and provided residents with the support needed to deliver the policy, many would have supported you, including myself. Sadly, everything this Lib Dem administration has done is poorly communicated, poorly project planned, and poorly delivered. The perception of this administration is that your consultations are half-hearted and nothing more than a box-ticking exercise. The residents are of the opinion that you ignore what they think and what they want. I encourage all Liberal Democrat members to read the additional comments submitted on this petition because the verdict is damning. This week you announced a consultation to great media fanfare and put up signs all over Thatcham. Nobody in the Lib Dem administration thought to check that everything was working before you announced the consultation, and the results were that residents think it's a done deal on that issue, and just another example of the council doing what it wants without considering opinions. I urge you to hear the voices of residents that took the time to have their say on this petition, pause the reduced collections, or provide those who need the support that you promised. Publish the criteria and determination process. Most of all, please start listening to residents. The Lib Dems claim that it's only the same 40 people who complain about everything on Facebook. But if you continue with that mentality, you'll all be toast at the next election, and that's if you don't succeed in trying to cancel the next elections. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garvey. I will now open the debate. Councillor Shakespeare.
Thank you, Chairman. Thanks very much to Councillor Gawley, who's taken half the points I wanted to make. But now, West Berkshire is not the only authority to see this problem, the problem with the finances that he's laid out so well. It could be so a bit late to the party, actually, but thankfully this administration has grasped the nettle. There are over 40 councils across the country who already have free weekly bin collections. These range from big urban areas like Glasgow, Salford and Newport to rural councils like Pembrokeshire, East Suffolk or Argyll and Bute. In Greater Manchester, councils like Wigan, Bury, Rochdale and Oldham have been running free weekly collections for over 10 years. We're joining this group now, building on their experience with the knowledge of what's worked and what hasn't. The taxes on waste processing are only going to go one way, so many other councils will be moving to free weekly collections as well. I'm glad we're doing it now and not wasting money by doing it later. There is obviously a period of uncertainty until the first few cycles are completed. In my own ward, there are residents I've spoken to who refuse to recycle their food waste. And I'm sorry, but if you choose to do so, then it's probably best to waste less food. There are others who have had problems such as incontinence who worry about the effect, and that's perfectly reasonable. As Councillor Gawley has already laid out, we have in place a scheme to get bigger bin if you need it. And it assesses a range of criteria: the number of people who live at the property, the number of kids in nappies, the amount of recyclable medical waste. And I'm sure all of us will keep in touch with our residents who have raised such concerns and escalate any problems with the scheme, which remains under review. I fully support how we've brought in this policy, and I propose not to take the action sought in this petition.
Is that a formal proposal, Councillor Shakespeare?
It is a formal proposal.
Can I have a seconder, please? Would you like to speak now or reserve your right, Councillor Pemberton?
Well, I'm happy to second, but I'll take. Sorry.
You need to stand up too if you're going to second.
I'll take guidance from the chair as to whether I should speak now or reserve my right.
It's up to you.
I'll speak now. Thank you, Chair.
Please continue then.
Yeah.
Time's now going on 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor Gawley and Councillor Shakespeare for responding to this petition. I'm speaking to you directly, Mr Garvey, regarding the comments that you made around our consultation process being half-hearted. Councillor Gawley has correctly gone through the various measures that our council officers have taken to make this change and our waste strategy more generally run smoothly. But in terms of the consultation, Mr Garvey, I can only conclude that your version of events is slightly different to mine. And I think we need a very brief history lesson. I haven't got a lot of time. We need to go all the way back to 2023, when this administration started actively engaging both with members and members of the public through workshops that we held between in the early parts of 2023. There was a public workshop in May 2023. Presentations were held in open forums of the council's environmental advisory group on the 27th of November that year. The current waste strategy and the decision to proceed with 3 weekly bins first came to this council's scrutiny committee on the 17th of July 2024. We published that strategy on the 25th of September 2024, and it's been through our scrutiny commission a further 2 times, once on the 13th of March this year and later on the 1st of July 2025. I've heard the comments many, many times before about you don't listen to residents and you've ignored their concerns and all of the rest of it. Councillor Gawley and Councillor Shakespeare have set out the very concerns that this council has taken into account to make this transition as smooth as possible. We don't run this council by opinion poll. We have to take very, very difficult policy decisions. And when we do that, we listen to our officers and we listen to the advice and we listen to the experts who tell us how this can work and how it will help us in the long run. In terms of the more recent action that we've taken, on the 9th of May, when we formally announced that 3 weekly would commence later in the year, we had a press release. When we knew what the date was going to be, when we knew what the start date was going to be, we put comms out via our digital newsletters. Bin hangers went onto our residents' black bins on the 14th of July. There was contact details for our residents to speak to us if there was anything they was concerned about. A second bin hanger went onto the black bins in August. On the 26th of August, an 8-page leaflet went out to all households. That included a collection calendar. Residents can check their bin collection dates on our website. Lots and lots of other press releases have gone out. We've got digital newsletters. We've got social media, Facebook pages, messages on Instagram. Councillor Gawley's done a live Q&A, which has given residents the opportunity to ask any questions that they want. We've put advertisements
Please draw your remarks to a close.
And the Reading Chronicle. We've got posters at libraries, we've had them at leisure centres and our 2 waste recycling centres. We've emailed all of our parishes. We've done over 29...
Time is up, Councillor Bempson.
We've spoken to over 500 people. Mr Garvey, my recollection of events is very different to yours, and I would respectfully suggest there's nothing to see here. Thank you.
Councillor McKinnon.
Thank you very much, Chairman.
Chairman, sorry, I'm a bit... Sorry, I'm really, really sorry, colleagues. Is this the entire petition? There's just this 2 lines that's in the agenda pack, or is there? Because we haven't seen the entire petition.
In effect, that is what we are going to be deciding on.
Okay.
There's not enough time to deal with every single point.
Yeah, because I haven't even seen it. So sorry to interrupt.
That's all right, Councillor
Continue.
Well, there you go, Mr Garvey. Hope you're listening. What you got there was a furious rant from Councillor Pemberton. I thought he was going to do himself an injury. You've been put in your place, haven't you now, Mr Garvey, as have all of the thousands of people who have signed that petition. Councillor Gurley made some nice little remarks about how this is an important part of democracy, but you've just been chewed out. You've had the hairdryer treatment for having the temerity to bring this position. I'm amazed that his colleagues actually applauded that obscenity. Councillor Gurley, you said that you were going to answer the question, and you didn't. You said that you were going to answer the question about how many households had been refused support. You didn't answer that. You told us what percentage had applied. You told us the number of households that had been granted. You swerved that one. I wonder if you'd like to take the opportunity to fill that in. How many have been refused? And it was just a bit sad to see the behaviour of some of the people opposite, actually. Shouting rubbish and making faces when Mr Garvey was presenting his petition. I think we talk about respect, and I think that goes for members of the public as well as to each other. I think that was a bit sad. Now, there is an opinion poll, Councillor Pemberton, that you need to take account of, and it's called the local elections. There's an opinion poll every 4 years, which dictates how this council's run. And I checked your manifesto for the last local election. I've been checking it a lot over the last couple of years, as you know. There was nothing in there about moving to 3 weekly bin collections. There was something in there about getting rid of the garden waste charge. That's not happened. But there was nothing in there about degrading the black bin service. But fair enough, it wasn't in the manifesto, so you didn't really have a mandate for it, but you did a consultation. That's fair. And there was a really big response to that consultation. And the consultation told you no. But you went ahead and did it anyway. Now, I've got a motion later on that talks about trust in the council and transparency. And what was in your manifesto was a commitment to listen to residents, one that gives residents a real say in the decisions that affect you. Well, you've just had the hairdryer treatment from Councillor Pemberton, Mr Garvey. That's what happens when residents decide to try and have a real say. You get yelled at. Now, what this administration does, they hid their intentions. It wasn't in the manifesto. They've ignored the consultation. Councillor Shakespeare tells his residents who are not behaving the way he wants to, well, they'd better just recycle some more food waste then. That's how they treat you, everyone. You treat residents like children. It's not very liberal or democratic, is it? Residents don't want this. They certainly didn't vote for it. So let's pause, put it in your manifesto for 2027 and see what happens then. Thank you, Chairman.
McKinnon, keeping to time as well. I've now got Councillor Culver. I have you down. I think you.
It was just the question that I had, Chair.
That was it.
I can't see the petition text online or in the agenda pack.
All right. Okay, Councillor Abbs, I think you have indicated.
Yeah, thanks very much. I guess it's a question for Councillor Gawley. Currently, the South Oxfordshire recycling rate is 63%. I've just done a quick Google search while we're sitting here waiting. And it says the West Berkshire recycling rate is 53%. So clearly we've got a long way to go. Comparing South Oxfordshire to West Berkshire, they have remained on a 2-weekly cycle and separated the waste slightly differently than we have chosen to. I'm still stuck with why we didn't first achieve the higher rates like South Oxford are achieving without going to this measure. When I had the portfolio for a short while, this was bought as a measure to save money with the add-on that it helped the environment. Yes, it was. I had the portfolio holder at the time, Stuart. Don't shake your head. I remember what was said to me. Okay, so it's fine that it saves the environment or can help with the environment. There are other methods. It is actually better to be clear with the public. If we are in financial trouble, we say we're in financial trouble, and this is a way of solving that, and it happens to increase the recycling rates. What I'd like us to go to is a combination of both, where we do, if we've got to accept 3 weeks for financial reasons, fine, but let's also increase our standard recycling rates up to South Oxfordshire by following their example. And that was it, really. Thank you.
Councillor Abbs, I now have Councillor Brooks.
I will be brief. Councillor McKinnon, we didn't have a Labour government when we put that manifesto together, threatening us with £1.4 million of tax from energy from waste. Things change and you have to look to change with them. But I'll address my points to Mr Garvey. Hello, Mr Garvey. You are trying to build a narrative that we don't listen to the public. You're trying to build that narrative. It suits the opposition to go along with that narrative. But I'm going to bring you I'm going to go through some stats for you. In our 24-25 budget consultation, we put 12 proposals forward. 3 of them, as a result of consultation, we cancelled outright, didn't do them. 7 of them we modified as a result of consultation. And 2 of those, the residents were supportive, so we went ahead of them due to public feedback. We listened on that occasion, Mr Garvey. You can continue to put these things on social media, but the facts don't back up the case. In the 25-26 budget consultation, we put 9 proposals forward. 3 as a result of consultation, we cancelled outright. 3 we modified as a result of residents coming back to us and making their points known. And 2 were supportive, so we went ahead. And 1 we did go ahead where we didn't where the public were not so sure. But overall, we have been listening and we've been acting on consultation. This one is difficult for any organisation when it's faced, any administration, when it's faced with up to £1.4 million of extra tax, when it's faced with being in the bottom 10% for recycling. We have to take measures to address that. So, Mr. Garvey, I will remind you that you wrote to me and said, can you come and see me and the chief executive? And we had a date, sir. I asked you in. I said, come on in, talk to us. You never even cancelled that appointment. You just didn't show up. That invitation, Mr. Garvey, is open to you. Is open to you because of the opinions you form and the things you say. You are welcome to come and talk to us. If you're in the country at the time, we'd love to see you. Thank you.
Councillors, under the proportionality rule, I am looking for more contributions from my right, but otherwise I have requests to speak from my left. Councillor Marsh, and then Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Chair. Well, notwithstanding what's been said about the social media and the other media that's been used, I think it's clear from those who talk to our residents. I don't think that you've made the case for this. I do think that Councillor Gourley, as I've said on many occasions, has done a fantastic job, virtually single-handed, of going out there and facing people, and I admire him for that. But, you know, there's a lot of people out there who are unhappy. My sense of this is that people who don't have a problem with their black bin because they don't use it that much are happy. There's a lot of people who aren't, and they contact us with their issues, some of which are mentioned in the full version of the petition, which we don't have in front of us. I think that sometimes you need to step back and see why people are unhappy. They didn't do that with Sill, they didn't do it with Monks Lane, they didn't do it with Redibus, and look what happened to them as a result. But my biggest concern that I want to raise, and it has been touched on, is the impact on the consultation process. Now, I get what Councillor Brooks has said. Yes, we did some consultation, but there is a real perception out there that when you consult, you might follow it through, you might not, depending on circumstances. And I think that that's very damaging. So when you do something that most people would support, such as the 20 miles an hour limit in Thatcham, which I strongly support, I'm going out there to make the case for that. I think some more of you should be doing it, but I'm going out there to make the case for that. And what are they all saying? They will ignore it. They ignored the pedestrianisation consultation. They ignored the bins consultation. I think that's a real problem for the council, which is why I think Councillor McKinnon's motion, which we'll be hearing later, makes some very good points, although it didn't apply when they were in office, but, you know. I know what Stuart thinks, that we're betraying our commitment to more recycling. We're not. And I think Councillor Abbs has explained something about that. But I do think you need to address people's concerns. It's not just a handful of people on Facebook, Councillor Brooks. And I think that we perhaps felt that the previous administration didn't always listen to its residents. And I think this is an issue to demonstrate that you do listen, and therefore a pause to us makes sense. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Stewart?
Thank you. So I'm here really to talk on behalf of residents that have contacted me. So it's very interesting to hear that that we're listening to residents, and we've put in place various different issues. We've put in place practices to be able to support them. But this is a direct quote from one of my residents. The council have stated that larger black bins are available upon request. I have requested a larger black bin for my household, and this was denied. I sent a follow-up email detailing my concerns, and I was merely sent a link to their complaints procedure for those that are denied a larger bin. It didn't give me any explanation. It didn't feel as if the council were listening to my genuine concerns. Another has contacted me with concerns about the situation for their household over Christmas. where they will have relatives visiting and staying. They're already a large household. How are they going to deal with all of their extra waste, things that cannot be recycled, such as polystyrene, Christmas wrapping paper and cards with glitter, etc. So now they're going to have to make several trips to the recycling centre to be able to get rid of those. They're willing to do it, but they don't see why they should. And I also have some areas of my ward where they have steep slopes or steps up and down to their properties. This year, they received notifications that they needed now to take those bins up onto the highway. Well, that's not easy to do, particularly if all you've got steps and if you have mobility issues. And then on one of the weeks in the timetable, you've got to take all of them. So this particular petition, as we've said, we haven't seen it all, but it talks about a pause, and it feels as if this should be paused until all of these things can be ironed out, because at the moment, our residents are having to deal with this and they shouldn't have to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. I think we're now moving to the time when we have to conclude to stay within the 30 minutes, councillors. So I'm now going to call on Councillor Shakespeare to give, as the mover, any concluding remarks responding to the debate.
Thank you very much for anyone who's contributed to this evening. I'd just like to, Councillor Stewart's point there reminded me of a fantastic scheme that I learnt of just last week called the Assisted Collection Scheme, which has been very useful for a number of my residents. People who are elderly or people who have mobility difficulties, where the bin men will actually come onto your property and move your bin up and down the stairs, and it's something that has been a concern to people who who think that the bin's going to become heavier through this. I'll yield if you. I think that there are a number of issues being discussed here. As I said in my initial comments, this has been based on the experience of a number of councils up and down the country. There are schemes to help residents who are affected by this remain under review, and I hope that we'll all feed into the officers responsible if we see any problems with them. And again, I'd like to move that this that we bring this.
You're moving that action as requested not to be taken.
That's
is that correct?
Yes, Councillor Precious.
And we have that motion seconded by Councillor Pemberton. Can I call the monitoring officer to conduct the vote?
Thank you, Chairman. Can I please ask all members in favour of the proposal to reject the petition, which is the petition request is detailed now on the screen. Again, that is as appeared in the supplementary agenda that was issued earlier this week. So can I please ask those in favour of that proposal to raise their hands? Thank you. Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that that proposal has been approved and the petition has therefore been, it has been determined not to take the action sought in the petition.
Can I just deal with the point raised in a question by Councillor Culver? As I understand it, speaking to the monitoring officer, there were two petitions. They were kind of conflated into what could form the basis for the best sort of debate in the time available. I personally didn't ever see either of those petitions in full, but I gather they were very long and included spreadsheets and lots of points. But they boiled down to, do we review this or not? And that's what we've decided, that we will not. But it is continually being monitored.
Thank you, Chairman, for that. There is a three weekly waste collections petition on our e-petitions website that's got 183 people on it, and it says that it's finished, but the one from Mr Garvey is not on there. Hence the confusion, I think, because we haven't got Mr Garvey's text, but we have got the text of the other one because it's on our website.
Chairman, it is the convention that you stand when you speak in a full council meeting. Councillor Culver knows that, and I'm not sure why she won't adhere to it.
I apologise, sorry, I forgot.
I accept, but please remember that that is the convention. Moving on, councillors, we now have, I think, some relatively easy items, public questions. There being none, we move on to item 7, membership of committees. I'm not aware of any proposals to amend the membership of committees at this stage. Item 8, motions from previous meetings. There are no motions from previous meetings that need to be updated to you. And updates from committees. Item 9, council is to be informed about the meetings that took place, and it's all laid out in the agenda item that you should have in front of you. So there's no need for a vote on that. So we now move on to agenda item 10, the Hungerford Neighbourhood Development Plan. And may I invite Councillor Denise Gaines to formally move the recommendation contained within the report.
So moved, Chairman.
May I ask for a seconder?
Chairman, I'm happy to second and I'll reserve my right to speak.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gaines, will you now introduce the report?
Thank you, Chairman. The examiner has recommended that this NDP with modifications can proceed to referendum. However, the examiner's decision is not binding and only this council can decide if it can. This report provides the evidence for the council to make that decision. Para 2 has the recommendations. 2.1 says to endorse the decision statement on the Hungerford NDP, which concludes that the Hungerford NDP, with the inclusion of the modifications, meets the basic conditions. And because of the modified plan, meets the basic conditions, the recommendations at 2A and 2C would apply. As I said in my declaration of interest at the start of this council, I was involved in the neighbourhood plan almost from its conception, until I resigned when I was elected as one of Hungerford's ward members back in 2023. The history of the NDP has taken 7 long years, and I use the word long advisedly. During that time, there have been a number of consultations as it progressed. Of course, we did have the COVID issue, which stopped the plan progressing for almost a year. The Hungerford NDP will guide development in the parish of Hungerford to 2041. It presents a vision for the area, supported by 21 objectives. The NDP is structured around 6 key policy themes, encompassing a total of 13 policies. These were created as a result of the initial consultation in 2018, where residents were asked, what do people like about Hungerford? And what were their main concerns? There were 556 responses. The vision, aims and objectives of the plan were then conceived from those points, ideas and issues raised. The plan also contains housing allocations on 2 sites. This came later in the process and has also been included in the West Berkshire local plan. This has been the biggest issue during the process, that of identifying those site allocations. This too was consulted on widely. There were numerous other consultations events over the plans period, including visits to Tesco's, the Wednesday market, and even during annual Victoria evening, as well as more conventional consultations in the town hall, where the proposals were exhibited each time something new was introduced during the plan period. Again, every year at the town meeting in the spring, there was also a presentation of the plan so far. There have been reports on strategic environment assessment and habitat regulation assessments produced. So there's been a great deal of resident participation, as well as consultations with local organisations, including our schools, sports clubs, of which we have many, doctors' surgery, and our larger employers. If the Hungerford NDP is successful at referendum, it will be adopted as part of the development plan for West Berkshire the day following the referendum, and will be used in part for the determination of planning applications going forward in the future. If we vote to accept this report, then Hungerford can proceed to referendum. So, members, I'm asking for you to agree the proposals at para 5.17, A, B and C. I'm proposing we accept the process in this report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Gaines. I now open the subject to debate. If anybody wishes to speak, Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Chairman. Channeling my inner Bridgeman here. For as long as I've been involved in this council, we've been known as West Berkshire Council. The paper refers to us as West Berkshire District Council.
Advise that is the legal name.
The legal name,
Okay.
Councillor Abbs.
Yeah, thanks very much. I can't, what I'd like to say is I fully support anybody going for an NDP. So there's no way that we should be saying anything but yes, please, full steam ahead. The main reason for me though right now is to make sure you get as much SIL as you possibly can. My only concern revolves around how quickly it gets outdated. And we have so many changes coming forward from the government right now. That I'd be encouraging the people to kind of keep an eye on it, but get it done so you can grab the SIL and then do the good works with the SIL. But I'm fully supportive of the moving forward as fast as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Abbs. I share those concerns of yours. Councillor Wollaston.
Apologies for the delay in getting up. I also apologise from Councillor Pennyworth for his absence on business. I agreed to review the plan on behalf of the group, as I've lived near Hungerford for more than 25 years. My wife ran a shop in the town. I've been on the steering group of Lambourne NDP, which will hopefully be coming to council in the next few weeks, so I know just how much time and effort goes into its production. My congratulations to the Hungerford steering group, what seems a first-class piece of work, and the Conservative group will be voting in support.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wollaston. Right, Councillor Taylor, yes.
Yeah, I think if I can just add to what others have said, I'm a representative of Tarles Parish, which has had an NDP running for 10 years. And I think I've said this before in the council chamber. I'll be honest, I haven't read word for word the entire Hungerford, but I've looked through much of it and really commend. I think it's a great achievement. I think you've been working on yours almost as long as Tarles has. So I fully support it, and well done to that NDP group. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Taylor. I'm the third of the ward members. I don't live in Hungerford. I have had no personal involvement in preparing this neighbourhood development plan, but I love the town, and I want to commend the town council and the whole of the steering group, whose chair is sitting with us. Yes, hello, and the mayor, of course, is here as well. And you're very lucky to have such an effective council and a great community. And the document you put together is splendid and deserves to be supported. And let's hope the residents agree with us. Thank you very much. Councillor McKinnon, do you want to have a go? Yeah.
Yeah, just very, very briefly, just on behalf of Councillor Bennyworth, who can't be here, as Councillor Wilson said, he's on business. He has received correspondence from residents both in favour and against the plan, and he wanted to put that tonight. As Councillor Wilson says, this is for the residents of Hungerford to decide, so those residents can put their cases when that referendum happens. But just wanted to put that on behalf of Dennis. Thanks.
Councillor McKinnon, you reminded me that a referendum is unlike a consultation, it is binding. Consultations are merely part of the evidence prior to a decision being made. Councillor Pemberton, do you wish to say anything as the seconder to the motion?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. A few words, if I may. I would firstly endorse the comments that have been made by other contributors about the work of the steering group. Thatcham, I actually moved the last item that came to this full council back in March when Hungerford started the independent examination process. And as a town, Thatcham is just starting out on its NDP journey. We are discovering just how difficult it is to put those steering groups together and actually get the volunteers and the knowledge, and the expert base to actually drive the evidence and get things done. So a huge amount of respect to Hungerford that have gone through this process. I think it should be extremely proud. I think the ward members should be extremely proud. And now we just need to obviously convince the voting public of Hungerford that this is a good idea as well, because this, as other contributors have said, this NDP will give those residents a greater say in the future of the parish. It will give them a say over that parish's development and the vision, and ensure that the growth and development is fit for purpose. Councillor Abbs has rightly made the point about SIL. If nothing else, these plans bring more money back into the parishes, which can then be reinvested back into those same communities. Our parishes really are the front line. They're the first tier of government, and they have a knowledge of their residents and the community and the needs. So that extra investment can only ever be a good thing. I am a little bit confused about the current government's approach to neighbourhood development plans. It says it's in favour of localism, whilst at the same time taking away some of the funding and the grant funding that's available to parishes to actually bring these things forward. And I'm not entirely sure that the planning and infrastructure bill that's currently going through Parliament will do much to help that either. But look, this is a good news story. It's a good news story, and I would urge all members to vote to move this through to referendum so that the residents of Hungerford can decide whether or not this is something that finds favour with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pemberton. Councillor Gaines, do you wish to conclude the debate with any remarks?
Just to reiterate Councillor Pemberton in thanking the steering group for doing such an excellent job, and obviously with the backing of the Hungerford Town Council. Thank you, Chair.
Monitoring Officer, that was a good short debate. Can we please have a show of hands then call for the...
Thank you, Chairman. Can I please ask all members in favour of the proposal to raise their hands? Thank you. Any against or abstentions? Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that that has been approved.
Moving on to agenda item 11, the Youth Justice Plan for 2025-2026. May I invite Councillor Heather Codling to formally move the recommendation contained within the report?
So moved.
Can I ask for a seconder?
Yes, Chair, I'd like to second. Thank you.
Do you wish to reserve your right?
I will, please. Thank you.
Councillor Codling, would you like to introduce the report?
Thank you, Chairman. West Berkshire is incredibly privileged to have a youth justice service that is found on inspection to be outstanding and has been for a number of years. All local authority partnerships have to submit a plan setting out the provision of youth justice services for the coming year. This plan has been prepared in consultation with our partners, for instance, Thames Valley Police, Health and Probation, Voluntary Sector Organisation and Education. Incorporated into the plan is also the views of the children, volunteers, staff and the Youth Justice Management Group. The aims of the plan should address how services will prevent offending behaviour and reduce reoffending. This annual plan is a framework that sets the course to support children, young people and their families, ensuring they have every opportunity to realise their full potential. The support team has embraced the principles of commitment to a child-first approach. This child-centred philosophy places the rights, needs and aspirations of children and young people at the heart of service delivery. This plan is emphatic in its commitment to transforming the lives of children in the justice system. Many of these children have faced significant adversity, trauma and disadvantage. This can be seen from the data included in the report. We will deliver responsive, trauma-informed services that prioritise prevention, diversion and relationship-based practice. We have set out the progress made over the past year and our aspirations for the coming year, which is to see every child and young person in West Berkshire live a life free from crime and full of possibility. West Berkshire Youth Justice Service is a very experienced and well-respected partnership with a proven track record of working collaboratively to tackle the root causes of offending, address systemic inequalities and create positive, sustainable opportunities for children to thrive within our community. The Youth Justice Plan for 2025-26 has been discussed and endorsed by the Youth Justice Management Group and the Building Communities Together Partnership. I recommend this plan to you and propose to Council formally endorse this plan. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Codling. We are now moving on to the debate. So I open the debate to the floor. Anybody wishing to speak? Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Codling. I think this is yet again a fantastic report that has come from the Youth Justice team. Many of the interventions in the plan are underpinned by grant funding, which expires next year. So what will you do, Councillor Codling, to make sure that there is continued funding for the team that do such excellent work?
Anybody else wishing to speak? If not, I will move on to Councillor Foote, if he wishes to say anything. And then Councillor Codling can answer that question in her concluding remarks.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, it gives me great pleasure to second this item. I think it is something that this council can be immensely proud of, the youth justice system, and I think everybody that's involved in it deserves the greatest praise. Outstanding is not a credit that many people get much of the time, particularly councils, and so I think that's something to be universally applauded. And I haven't really got much more to say other than urge everybody to read this very comprehensive report. But one thing that struck me was on page 19, there are the children's views that has been stipulated. And interestingly enough, all the points that are raised, the three top points that the young people raised, were exactly the same as the 3 points that the volunteers raised, only in a different order. And I think that says a lot for the connection that the volunteers in this organisation have and the great work they do. And it's lovely to hear the children's voice. So yes, I wholeheartedly support this, and I'm very happy to second this motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Foote. Finally, Councillor Codling.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, the grant is renewed annually by the Youth Justice Board and supported by the partnership funding, which you can secure through the board. I will make sure that I work with officers to make sure that we actually do get the grant funding. Thank you.
Right, the recommendation we're now asked to vote on is to agree and formally endorse the Youth Justice Plan 2025-2026. Would you please, monitoring officer, conduct the vote?
Thank you. Can I please ask all members in favour of that proposal to raise their hands? Thank you. Any against or abstentions? Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that that proposal has been approved.
I'm now going to call an adjournment for 10 minutes so we can all have a leg stretch and perhaps have a snack if I haven't heard any crisp packets being rustled yet, but it might be that time of the evening when you want to boost your energy levels. And can we return respectfully to debate a number of motions that are going to be debated tonight? So can we reconvene at 25 past, please? So wish to say a few words about how the motions are going to be taken and why, I think.
Sorry, it was to clarify, when we were asking members whether there were any declarations of interest, a query was raised by the Leader of Council regarding members who were in receipt of a local authority pension in relation to one of the motions this evening. I can confirm that I have checked the rules. I do not believe that that would amount to a disclosable pecuniary interest, nor do I believe it meets the criteria for an other registrable interest under our constitution. Any member in receipt of a local authority pension may, however, wish to declare a personal interest by virtue of receipts of the pension. However, that will be a matter for the individual members to determine. Chairman, you may wish to invite at this point any members who wish to make a declaration in light of my response to that query from earlier.
Councillor Brooks.
Yes, I think I'm happy to declare, and I think there will be some others on this side, and perhaps even yourself, sir, who would like to declare that we are in receipt of a local government pension.
Any other members in that position besides myself? I think it's anyone who was a member up until about 2012 or something like that. So we've got Councillor Gaines, Councillor Drummond, Councillor Barnett. Any others? Not even you, Councillor McGraw? I mean, it was optional. It wasn't something you had to do, but those of us that did do it. Thank you very much for that. Will be noted. Now, on the motions, it's up to me whether we take them on the night. I obviously take advice from the monitoring officer, but we are going to be taking 2 of them on the night. I'll give you warning. We may end by 10, but I will be seeking a vote to extend beyond 10 if we have to. So motion A is in the name of Councillor Adrian Abbs. Please, could you move your motion?
Thank you. Motion is so moved.
Can we have the motion? Has everybody got the motion in front of them? I think it's in your supplementary papers. Can I ask for a seconder?
Happy to second, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Abbs, you have up to 5 minutes to introduce your motion, and because I'm then going to refer it to the executive for consideration, as the detail of the motion falls within the remit of the executive, and that is in accordance with Procedure Rule 12.6.1. Over to you.
Yeah, I totally accept that, but I always think it's a pity we miss an opportunity to take input to the executive directly.
Could you be a bit closer to the microphone? Your voice doesn't come across that well.
How's that? Is that any better? Right, fantastic. Look, councillors, for the record, let's be clear, I campaigned on trying a pedestrianisation in the High Street. I was a Liberal Democrat at the time. It was in the manifesto, and I was really happy to see it finally come through as a trial. Okay. There are benefits to having such a system, and safety and clean air are usually the 2 that gets mentioned first. However, anecdotally, and it is anecdotally, I've started to hear more and more about how people feel unsafe because the high street is now devoid of traffic at 10, 11 o'clock at night, and there's the lack of people walking around. And as we get towards winter, I think that will, in fact, increase. There are hoped-for benefits from business, hoped for by myself as well. So my start point would be to talk with someone like the BID to say, hey, how's it going, and so on and so forth. They do a valuable job here in Newbury, and I value their input a lot. However, I do like to be driven by the facts or the data that's shared with myself. And the reason this motion is here at all is because as I was observing how the trial was going, as I ate at the various restaurants around town, it became clear, maybe it's because some of the restaurants know that I'm a councillor, they started sharing what they thought about how it was going. And to be quite frank, a lot of it was neutral to negative. So I thought, okay, let's get a motion. Let's talk with them about, okay, what type of thing would you want then? And that's what this motion is. It's not really me just thinking it up. It's what the businesses were telling me as I wandered around town.
So now in preparation for this evening, I went out this week and I spoke to various companies. I've shared this with the leader and with the portfolio holder so that you have exactly what was said to me. It's not me making it up, this is what was said to me. But it starts with 18 companies that I surveyed directly. Camp Hobson, Goat on the Bridge, Sevenbone, Cope Brasserie, Trebrizio Lounge, M&S, Tesco's, Griffin's Butchers, Old Wagon and Horses, Slug and Lettuce, Bill's, the Hatchet Inn, Ugly Duckling, the Globe, Pizza Express, the Sushi Maki, ZZ, and the Elephant on the Market. And yes, I don't have a life. This is all I do is wander around town. But basically, it falls into a few categories. Those that only one of them thought they'd seen a positive, or told me that they thought they'd seen a positive, and that was the Trebrizio Lounge. But they said, well, we think that was because of the weather. We did have a rather nice spring and summer, and they have a reasonably large outside area. The rest with neutral, slightly negative, negative, or very negative. Some of them were surprising to me, like Cop Hobson saying they were very negative. But who am I to comment on what they've told me? They basically have indicated that to me. Why? I think it comes down to the first bracket of people that have some kind of takeaway business and lack of accessibility to those people that pick up the food to take away. Obviously proves a problem. So you can look at people like, well, let me think now, not Slug and Lettuce, the Pizza Express, the Sushi Maki. Sushi Maki was massively affected, they told me. So, and that kind of seems to ring true. The other people, some of the pubs were saying, well, actually our clients like to be picked up and dropped off. That may be due to inebriation or not, I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, the lack of not being able to pick or drop off was another issue. So once you get past that, you're into the normal kind of things that, cost of parking. Yeah, if we're going to make it harder for people to reach the town centre, it's really saying you've got to go to the car parks, and then we make the car parks reasonably expensive to get into, then of course you're hitting one thing on top of the other. So you can see how, or I could see how, the reasons they were given meant that they were not particularly happy with the way it is right now. Now, we have an experimental traffic order. Great, scientists experiment a lot.
You have just 10 seconds to wind up.
So what I'm saying is, let's experiment, and here's a way of doing it. You may have other ideas. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Abbs. Now we have in our constitution the right of the portfolio holder to reply, 5 minutes maximum. Councillor Gourley.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you for bringing this option to Council this evening, Councillor Abbs. I'd like to take this opportunity to remind everyone that the trial is still underway at the moment, and the consultation on this scheme draws to a close over the next few weeks. So I'd like to urge residents and those organisations that you mentioned tonight to complete the feedback on the lived experiences of the scheme. As I said, it is a trial. You're absolutely right. So we want to hear that feedback so we can improve it and make a well-rounded decision. So as I say, kind of moving forward, all the data collected, whether that's traffic data, consultation responses, both qualitative and quantitative, economic data, dwell time, spend, and feedback from the bid and business stakeholders will all be collated to help make a reasoned and sound decision. And that may include alternative options that we could look at as well. But at this point, until the consultation is concluded, I don't think it's proper to comment any further, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Gourley. I think we move on to motion number B, letter B. So we have the motion in your order paper, and it's Councillor Justin Pemberton that is to move the motion.
Yeah, Chairman, I'm happy to move the motion in my name.
And who will be seconding this?
Chairman, I'll be seconding and I reserve my right.
Thank you. Councillor Pemberton, would you like to use your 5 minutes now?
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Chair. Members, this evening, we are not just debating lines on a map. We're discussing the future of local democracy, the vital delivery of public services, and the identity of the communities we represent. The proposal which prompted this action to form a new Ridgeway Unitary Authority is about ensuring that local government remains effective and accountable. It is about creating a structure that works for residents, not just now, but for generations to come. So I want to be clear, this reorganisation is not about where people shop, work or socialise. Communities naturally cross boundaries, and that's a strength, not a weakness. What this is really about is who is best placed to deliver the essential services that people rely on every single day. Schools, roads, libraries, adult social care, waste collection, and so much more. And on that point, the evidence is clear. West Berkshire consistently delivers stronger, better value for money services than our neighbours across the border. We have an administration committed to managing the financial position which this council finds itself, whilst not compromising on the scale and quality of service provided. Whether that's lower council tax, a better curbside recycling offer, better conditioned roads, the independent quality rating of our schools, business growth and engagement, household waste recycling centres, sports facilities, we score far higher compared to Reading on comparable metrics and quality outcomes. Yes, we have our detractors, but I live in hope that our residents see just how hard our councillors and officers work to make West Berkshire a great place to live, work, study and visit. In contrast, the proposal from Reading Borough Council to annex parts of our eastern wards feels rushed and ill-considered. It says nothing about how parishes would be treated. And let's remember, Reading has no parishes. What Reading Borough Council is proposing gives no assurance to local residents about how their voice would be heard or how decisions about their community would be made. How are those parishes funded? Will they continue to exist? We've heard so far absolutely nothing. There's no clarity about how local services, for example, education, would be affected. Many of our schools in the east of the district serve children from across boundaries and even different parts of our district. Has any thought been given to what will happen to these schools, pupils or parents that use them? No, it has not. These are not abstract questions. They go to the heart of how services are funded, how assets are managed, and how those communities function. And on every single one of those points, Reading's proposal comes up short. The communities in our eastern wards, places like Pangbourne, Thiel, Holybrook, Tidmarsh with Sulham, Tilehurst, Calcott, Purley, they have residents who are proud of where they live. They may work in Reading. They may shop in Reading. In fact, there's just as much chance that they may even work in London. But their community, their identity, their local networks and their parish representation are rooted here in West Berkshire. Those residents value the voice they have through their parish councils, through local democracy that is close to the ground. That is something that Reading Borough Council cannot offer. To break those connections, to subsume those communities into a larger urban borough without that local representation would be to strip away part of what makes them distinctive. This is not about rivalry, this is about responsibility. We have a duty to ensure that local services are delivered efficiently, locally, and with accountability to the residents we serve. Reading Borough Council's annexation proposal represents a retreat into short-term thinking and administrative chaos. Let's send a clear message tonight, and that message is that West Berkshire and a possible future Ridgeway Council stands for effective local government, strong communities, and residents who know their voices matter. I urge colleagues to state publicly tonight that they reject Reading Borough Council's proposal and that they are West Berkshire Council wards and will always be so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pemberton. For the benefit of those perhaps watching this on Zoom who haven't got the papers in front of them, just what we're basically debating now is to make a clear, the motion is to make a clear commitment to communities in the east of this district and seek to protect them from being moved to the neighbouring Reading Borough Council. I now open the debate. Councillor Sumner.
Chairman, thank you. I was, say, happy to be at the presentation on Monday. I don't know if the presentation is a thing to be happy about, that it was required in the first place, but I do want to thank those members opposite that were there and the officers that were in support, to parish councillors that were in attendance, and especially to the residents. I thought we had a very good turnout actually on Monday at Holybrook. There will of course be those that will support the move. There is, as we've said many times over this side, a difference in the colour schemes that go on politically, and it's much more red over that side. Not surprising then that some of the district councillors and parish councillors that would like to become district councillors have been quite vocal. I do question whether Mr Dillon ought to be included in this. He does, after all, represent West Berkshire residents, and we are that. So there is a bit of an overlap, and I wouldn't normally recommend that we go that route, but it does seem to be an option that should be looked into. There was an absence in the presentation of some key things for my mind. The lack of quality education results, the gall to blow their own trumpet about the Conservative government funding that came through for highways that they're now finally spending after years and years of waiting. And I'm not sure, as I stand here at the moment, whether Reading Borough are more hopeful of the land grab that they're attempting, or actually whether they are just hoping that the whole proposal falls over, and that their government is not accepting of the proposals that come through from Oxford. Because as was said several times, if that falls over, then it all falls over. Well, I think the proposal as it stands is sound. I've thanked publicly Councillor Brooks as leader before in his attempts to voice the opinion that Reading Borough Council should keep their boundary line where it is. And I stand by that, thank you. And I stand by your presentation on Monday evening, because it was solid and I think it was generally well received. Thank you. I will be supporting.
Thank you, Councillor Somner. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I felt rather insulted when I read this motion in relation to Reading's proposals. I don't need protection to save me or my fellow Reading and Eastern Area citizens who happen to live in West Berkshire that are close to, or in the case of the Tilehurst wards, are clearly integrated with Reading's communities and services as they have been for decades. We have the ballot box to try and save us or protect us if we feel we need political change when the time comes. But I do note that all the Reading political parties supported Reading's proposals, be they Labour, Liberal Democrat, Conservative or Green parties. And Labour isn't trying to seek any political advantage here. Only one of these 5 wards has elected a Labour councillor in the past 60 years, and he's here standing in front of you now with a 1-vote majority. But we might need saving and protection from the West Berkshire proposals, because many of us in the eastern areas are tired of waiting for the rebuild of the Calcutta schools, tired of the imposition of the multiple times rejected Pinson's Hill site into the local plan, the inability to use the Ready bus service in West Berkshire, the lack of pharmacies in Calcutta, the delays to the cycle pump track in Linear Park, the rapid development of Thill without the required infrastructure, schools with lesser mental health support than in the western areas, Calcutta bus routes altered, ignoring consultation results, 3 weekly black bin collections imposed, and a council that is cash-strapped and needed a government loan. I don't need saving from Reading, but possibly from West Berkshire, perhaps I do. So can I suggest that we all calm down, and that includes me, and let's have an intelligent debate. Reading and West Berkshire councils both have strong arguments for their local government reorganisation proposals, and I respect and understand both councils' positions. Both plans could happen in some form or other. So let's talk and consult, but tear up the letters that this motion proposes. I will be voting against. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. I now call on Councillor Abbs.
Thank you. Yep, don't really have too much to say on this. I did take part in the general election campaign, so I did talk to hundreds, if not thousands, of people in this area asking for the vote, which they didn't give me, so you can all laugh. But the reality is they did mention that they were not so happy, or quite a lot of them mentioned they weren't so happy with West Berkshire. That does not mean that they want to be part of Reading. There are two different things, and we must be clear on that. Personally, myself, I'm quite pragmatic about it. You know, when I've been looking at it from this council perspective, when I was asked to evaluate the Ridgeway proposal, I absolutely look at the commonality that we are in that proposal and go, yeah, that feels right to me. We are similar kind of areas. I can't say we're similar type of people, but we're certainly the similar type of demographics and so on. So from the Ridgeway proposal, no problem at all. However, if people of Calcott, if people of Thiel, when they are asked in a statistically significant survey, petition, whatever you want to call it, if they say they want to go with a different proposal, then actually as an elected representative, I will always bow to that, as long as it's statistically significant. And if you need to know what that means, I'm not going to bore you with the equation tonight. Do a quick Google. It'll show you. It's a pretty high percentage of people need to respond. Let's be led properly in our surveys, consultations by the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Abbs. I am going to be limiting the total debate to half an hour in the interest of us all getting home at a reasonable time. But I have another 4 speakers, not including the seconder and the mover of the motion. But the next one of those is Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. We have our meeting at Tilehurst Parish Council on Monday, so it will be interesting to see what those residents who attend that meeting say. At this point, I don't feel that I can speak on behalf of all of my residents because they haven't contacted me. All I can do is say how I feel about the situation, and a strange one that we find ourselves in, because actually, is anything that we say actually going to make a difference? Because it's not us that can make the decision. But I think it's right that we speak our minds. So before I got involved in this wonderful life of local politics and parish councils, I probably was one of the people that lived in this area, because I have lived in Calcott for 27 years, that couldn't understand why I wasn't part of Reading Borough Council. Now that I'm involved in everything and I can see the differences between the services and how those are provided, adult social care, education, all of the statistics actually that Councillor Pemberton shared at the meeting this week, it was really quite stark. And there were residents of Holybrook sitting around me that were nodding and could really appreciate that. So I will be supporting this motion tonight, because I think we need to make a stand. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. I now have even more speakers on my list, but I will allow speaking up until 9 before I ask for the seconder and the proposer to conclude the debate. Next is Councillor Brooks.
John, I've visited Tidmarsh and Sulham, Purley, Pangbourne, Thiel, and have Tilehurst and Calcott on Monday. Heather and Justin went to Holybrook last Monday. So far, the people that we've seen at those meetings, they've been in their dozens, up to 70, 80, 100, have generally been, we want to stay with West Berkshire Council. We're pleased with the services you provide. We don't want to go to Reading, even though we might shop there, we might work there. We might have neighbours quite close who are in Reading Borough. We like being part of West Berkshire Council. That has been what we have been hearing in a big majority. Not yet a statistical appropriate number, I don't suppose, but we're getting there. So Reading have been opportunistic. if you are going off to Ridgeway, we'll have your eastern borders. How neighbourly. How neighbourly. Thank you, Reading. And I've said before, what do you do next then? If you get this, is Woodley next? Is Early next? Where does your ambitions end, Reading? Because in your determination to be a city, and I'm the only councillor who remembers one of the reasons why we exist today and Berkshire County Council doesn't, because Reading were determined to run themselves as a borough and become a city, and they're going on like it 27 years later. No, people don't want Reading. And we do an analysis of what we do better than Reading, and by golly, it's a big series of things we do better than we do in Reading. And Councillor Taylor, we are working to improve services and facilities in the East, I promise you. Only this last week, on the 10th of October, the Care Quality Commission has rated Reading Borough Council as requires improvement. Here, we are considered good. Just another example of why people should eschew Reading and say, no, we don't want any part of you. So people say to me, what can we do? People say, not just this council, people, residents of that area say, what can we do? And I say to them, write to the Reading Borough Council, write to the MP, Liv Bailey, write to Liv Bailey and say, if you support this, we won't vote for you, because she's the right colour, Councillor Somner, to go to Whitehall and say, I'll talk to my mates. Write to her, I say this to the people of those areas, and tell her you won't vote for her if she supports this. Make her think. And let's vote for this motion and tell Reading, push off.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Councillor McCrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to correct something that Councillor Taylor has said when he claimed that this proposal had all party support. It did not have the support of the Liberal Democrats at Reading Borough Council. As I mentioned when I was introducing my petition against this move by Reading Borough Council, Thiel is a self-contained village with a physical separation from Reading. It is situated 3.5 miles from the Reading boundary and it's separated from Reading by the parishes of Holybrook and Tylehurst, but also by open fields and the M4 motorway. All residents' day-to-day needs can be met from the shops in Thiel. Pubs, restaurants and food and takeaways. Spiritual needs are met by the 2 churches. Employment needs are met from several large business parks, distribution depots, industrial units in the village or nearby. Thiel residents use council services provided by West Berkshire, not by Reading, and they don't go and use their leisure centres or whatever either. Thiel parishioners do not feel part of Reading, nor do they want to be. They voted for a parish poll to be held on the question of wanting to remain in West Berkshire. That will be held on the 6th of November, and I am confident that they will be voting to stay with West Berkshire. I've also spoken with residents of Calcott, Tylehurst and Purley-on-Thames, who are also vehemently against being taken over by Reading. So I'm asking you all, please, to vote for this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCrow. I next have Councillor Gourley.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm going to have to correct Councillor Taylor again tonight. Just a quick one. Redibus do continue to maintain a presence here in West Berkshire, and we'll talk about that in a minute in public members' questions. I know we've talked about bins this evening, so it would be remiss of me not to highlight Reading's shocking performance with their bins. And I know that we disagree, and that's fine. It's okay to disagree on things, but we can't dispute facts. And the facts are that at a fortnightly collection rate in Reading, they provide less weekly capacity than West Berkshire do weekly. 70 litres in Reading, 80 litres here in West Berkshire, even at 3 weeklies. And do you know what? We can even manage to collect glass at the curbside. So that's another reason to stay in West Berkshire.
Thank you. Councillor Codling is next, then Councillor McKinnon.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't going to speak on this, but having talked earlier about the excellent youth justice service that we provide as outstanding, Reading's for the last 2 inspections has been inadequate. So just small points. Our education service, secondary schools, good or outstanding, Reading 80%, West Berks 92.3. Primary schools, good or outstanding, 89% in Reading, 93.6 in West Berkshire. Just some small points to take note of. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor McKinnon.
Thank you, Chairman. Very, very briefly. I think, I noted Councillor Taylor's comments earlier on, and I and we all support this motion for the reasons that have already been said by many colleagues opposite. It is a bit of a shame, though, that just at the time where this council needs to persuade residents of Thiel and Purley and Calcott, etc., we're suffering a degradation of our bin service. We are demonstrating to residents in those areas that we ignore consultations. We are telling residents off for not doing enough to recycle their food waste. We are ranting at residents who bring petitions. It's not a great look, and you could maybe do yourselves and all of us a bit more of a favour by treating residents with a bit more respect.
Yeah, it's a good point.
There being no other speakers, I've just got a few words to say myself. I can remember the last local government reorganisation when consultation was done in those eastern parishes. Do you want to be in Reading or do you want to be in West Berkshire? And they overwhelmingly chose West Berkshire then. On the other hand, the parishes in North Hampshire were asked the same question. And although they do use Newbury quite a lot, they overwhelmingly voted to stay with Hampshire. I have a feeling that the council tax levels might have had something to do with that. So I'm now going to call on the, Councillor, seconding, Councillor Shakespeare, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This motion and the matter pertain to 5 wards across our council, but I hope you'll indulge me if I talk first about my home, Pangbourne. Now, when I speak of Pangbourne, I don't just mean the village itself, but I include the great communities of Tidmarsh, Sulham and Maidenhatch as well. Pangbourne has a very strong sense of its own independent identity. It gave the world Wind in the Willows and also Led Zeppelin. It has many great pubs, restaurants and independent shops, as well as a fantastic primary school, which is why earlier this month it was voted the best place to live in Berkshire.
Yeah.
It's a community where people donate their time and effort for scouts, youth football, care and transport for the elderly, because they want the village to remain the inclusive and supportive community that I love. So I do not blame Reading for looking covetously at my village. I imagine that those people who live in Purley, Thiel and other affected places feel equally passionate about the areas, and like me, they utterly reject this attempted land grab. I have nothing against Reading. I think it's a nice little city, but that is really what it is, a city. Reading Council tried 4 times to become a city, each time cruelly denied. I don't understand why. I mean, they made Wolverhampton a city, and if you've ever been there, well. So how did the people of Pangbourne and Thiel, in Tyleston, Purley and Calcott find out about this plan to make them districts of Greater Reading? Were their democratically elected ward members or parish councillors approached and asked how they felt about local government reorganisation? Were they smooth talked about the advantages of joining up with their big neighbour to the east? No. Reading Council announced a vote to annex us without any conversation or consultation. The first we heard of it was when it made the papers. Now, can you think of a political leader who recently made wild claims in the press that they should take over their neighbour? That the 19th century border that separated them was an artificial, irrelevant line? That Pangbourne could become the cherished 51st state of Reading Council and it would help make Reading great again? I'm sorry, I got a bit carried away. But the way that Reading Council went about this was just as unreasonable. It's upset people and driven out any possible sympathy to this idea. Eventually, there was a consultation, and what a consultation. Have you ever been shopping in Reading? Have you ever been to the RBH? Have you ever travelled through Reading train station? I very much hope that the Secretary of State, who will decide where our fate lies, recognises that where you may go to buy a pair of shoes should not be taken as a wholehearted approval of how you wish to be governed.
Yeah.
There are many other points I could make. We've had 5 well-attended public meetings. In all of them, the overwhelming sentiment has been to reject Reading's land grab and to embrace a future as part of Ridgeway Council. There is a petition signed by over 1,000 people calling on to stop the land grab attempt. We are here as democratically elected representatives of our communities. The democratic deficit of a Labour council applying to a Labour Secretary of State to take over areas that rejected the move is stark and should stop now. Pangbourne is not part of Reading. It has never been part of Reading. We do not want a future as an urban district of a city. We are a rural village and wish to remain so. I will be attending Reading Council on Monday to ask them directly to drop their unwelcome and unwarranted plans. Can I please urge you to support this motion?
Thank you, Councillor Shakespeare. Just a slight factual correction. Reading would love to be a city. I mean, it's attempted to be a city, but it's only a borough. I think, I think of it as a city like you do, clearly, but it's not. Can I move on to Councillor Pemberton now to summate and conclude the debate? Thank you.
Yes, thanks very much, Chair. I did appreciate Councillor Shakespeare's comments around the way in which Reading went about announcing and consulting on this proposed land grab. And Councillor Taylor, I am all about talking and consulting, and you're absolutely right. The tone of this debate does need to be dialed down, because at the end of the day, we are talking about how local services are provided and which councils provide them. And I'm sorry that you're insulted at some of the comments that have been made this evening, but frankly, I've been insulted, and I would suggest the vast majority of members in this room tonight have been insulted by Reading's conduct and the way they've gone about doing things to serve their own agenda without speaking to the people that are most important and at the heart of all of this, and that is our residents. And I was struck by some of the comments that Councillor Stewart made. We should not presume anything about what our residents think or what they want. This is about democracy, and this process should absolutely be about democracy. Councillor Brooks and I have been to many, many drop-in events about this matter, and the feedback and the stats don't lie. We can have personal opinions on things and we can interpret things whatever way we want, but the facts speak for themselves. And what I've seen is that the residents of these wards overwhelmingly want to stay part of West Berkshire Council. But of course, we have to include residents in those conversations and make sure that they remain at the heart of these conversations and the process as it draws forward. Now, we don't get a vote on what happens. This has all happened because of the Ridgeway proposal that we are looking to submit to central government. There's a lot of moving parts and things that have to be worked through. We don't get a vote. The residents don't get a vote. Ultimately, it's central government that decides. But to Councillor Stewart's comments, absolutely, those residents should make their voices heard. They should make their voices heard at the ballot box, and they should make their voices heard when inevitably central government will have to consult on what happens next. Councillor Sumner, very, very quickly, because I'm running out of time. I hear your points about perhaps including Lee Dillon MP in these conversations. I don't think it would necessarily be appropriate to amend the motion, because the area that Lee Dillon's constituency covers doesn't include these wards. I know that Lee is doing a huge amount of work at the moment, lobbying his fellow MPs in Oxfordshire as to the merits of the Ridgeway proposal. There isn't even a consensus on the part of the Lib Dems as to what should happen in terms of local government reorganisation. And as you will know, there are competing bids going in for Oxfordshire as well. So I know that Lee is doing a huge amount of work behind the scenes. I just don't think it would be appropriate to amend this motion here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pemberton. I think that was a really good debate. Brave of Councillor Taylor to be the only voice speaking against the motion, but I now call upon the monitoring officer to conduct the vote by a show of hands.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I please ask all members in favour of the proposal to raise their hands? Thank you. Any against? Thank you. And any abstentions? Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that that motion has been carried.
Thank you, members. As I say, it was a good debate. Motion C is in the name of Councillor Jeff Brooks. Could you please move your motion?
Happy so to move, Chairman.
Please note that the Council will not debate this motion this evening, and in accordance with Procedure Rule 12.6.1, this will be referred to the Executive for consideration, as the detail of the motion falls within the remit of the Executive. May I invite Councillor Brooks to speak to the motion?
Do you want to get a seconder?
Sorry, yes, I haven't got a seconder. Yes.
Chairman, I'm happy to second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Brooks.
Thank you. Let's sprinkle a little bit of cool water over what had been a little bit of a tense debate. Members, in 2013, Councillor Paul Bryant, who was chairman of the Fire Authority, Berkshire Fire Authority at the time, an alderman of this district, he brought a policy through on sprinklers, but I have to say that unfortunately it was watered down quite a lot. I'll try and weave some more of these in, Chair. And our policy at the moment is that all new buildings and extensions to or major refurbishment of existing buildings are to be subject to the requirements of the West Berkshire Council automatic fire suppression policy. So far, so good? Well, no. Because the policy is based on a three-step approach, which frankly gave our officers every opportunity possible not to install sprinkler systems. One, you had to establish through agreed criteria if the policy applies. Two, you had to carry out a risk assessment to establish if an automatic fire suppression system is required. And three, you had to do a cost-benefit analysis to establish if the automatic fire suppression system represents value for money. Let's put every obstacle in the way of putting these in the first place. So tonight, I am asking members to vote to very much strengthen this policy. That we commit to the installation of sprinklers or other AFSS, automatic fire suppression systems, within our own building stock when constructing new buildings, significant extensions and relevant refurbishment of existing buildings. Now, there may be instances where this is not economically practical. If you had to put sprinklers in Shaw House, for instance, and you would probably find you weren't able to on a Grade 1 listed building, you would have millions of pounds of cost. But Council determines that the policy will be to install sprinklers or other AFSS in the vast majority of cases. There's a presumption to do it. I put to you the policy before was a presumption to do it only if it passed enough criteria, and that very few would have done. The National Fire Chiefs Council, the NFCC, highlights that sprinklers are highly effective in controlling and extinguishing fires at an early stage, significantly reducing the risk to life, property damage and environmental harm. When they do operate, they are 99% efficient in extinguishing the fire. And no one has ever died in the UK as a result of a fire in a building with a properly maintained sprinkler system. Similarly, the Sprinkler Saves website presents real-life examples demonstrating that sprinklers frequently prevent fires from escalating. They limit fire and smoke damage, and they minimise disruption to businesses and communities. Think about schools. If we lost a school, even overnight, with no damage to human life, we would have tremendous disruption and cost of getting those children schooled and educated with no school for them to go to. Now, it's important to note that false activations of sprinkler systems are extremely rare, especially when the systems are properly installed and maintained. I have had people say, I wouldn't want a sprinkler because if it went off when it shouldn't do, it would ruin all my fixtures and fittings. I have to tell you that this is a common sprinkler system. Hard for you to see. You may see a bit of a red bulb in the middle of that. I can tell you, you need at least 68 degrees Celsius heat to crack that bulb for that sprinkler to work. 68 degrees Celsius. If you've got that, you've got a fire. So it is time for us to put this policy right. It is time for us to say, we will install these. It is also time for us to make representation to the government that it should make a requirement to install sprinklers in all new care homes, irrespective of height, including all those undergoing major or significant refurbishment, extension or alteration, and make it a requirement to retrofit sprinklers in high-rise residential buildings. And to, frankly, for us to lobby that these are put in new build homes. We're talking £1,000, £2,000, £3,000 extra on a home of maybe £500,000, £700,000. An extra £2,000 or £3,000 to have that assurance that your home will not burn to the ground because a sprinkler system is put in at the point of build. This is the right thing to do. The fire chiefs up and down the country are calling for it. It's time for us to get this policy right. And so I move. I hope I get the support of the Chamber. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. The portfolio holder in this case, because it's very much to do with property, is Councillor Ian Cottingham. You have a right to speak for up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I think in the interest of time, I think Councillor Brooks has covered off all of the major issues. I'm happy with what's been proposed, and we have, as I say, be going to exec.
That is what will happen. The motion will go to exec to be discussed and a decision made. Motion D is in the name of Councillor Ross McKinnon. May I ask for us?
I propose the motion, please, Chairman.
May I now ask for a seconder? Didn't forget this
Second, I
time.
reserve my rights.
Please note that the council will not debate this motion this evening, and in accordance with procedure rule 12.6.1, this will be referred to the executive for consideration as the detail of the motion falls within the remit of the executive. I will invite the proposer to speak to the motion now for 5 minutes, and then Councillor Brooks, as the portfolio holder, will respond.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and hello and good evening, members. This is actually quite a topical motion. I didn't quite intend it to be, but seeing that we debated the petition tonight, part of the substantive part of that petition was about the ignoring of residents' wishes and the going against express wishes in a consultation. This motion is about treating residents with respect and courtesy and informing them of decisions that the council's made which go against the expressed opinions of residents. This sounds like it's a bit party political, and I really don't intend it to be. And Councillor Marsh said, "Oh, that you didn't think about this when you were in power." I don't think we ever ignored a consultation when we were in power. Certainly, the 4 years I was on the executive, and well, I don't think it did. Did you? Which ones? Which ones did we? Green bins. That was before my time, Councillor Marsh. 2019 to 2023. That's how long I've been on here. But let's be serious for a minute. How do you want to treat residents? If you ask their opinion, and we've heard tonight about the local government reorganisation, that it's up to the residents. We want to listen to their opinion, and that's wonderful. Not quite what we were saying in response to the petition. We have an inconsistency there. But wouldn't it be nice when you ask residents for their opinion on something, and they tell you, and it's you at the moment, might be us, might be Reform, who knows in the future, but when they tell the administration, here's what we think. And the administration thinks, actually, no, it's not the right way to go. And you might think you've got a legitimate reason for that. You do with the bins. We might disagree, but you do, don't you? You're not listening to residents and then saying, oh, bugger, I don't care about you. You think that there's a reason to go another way. Tell them about it. Don't shy away from it. Level with them. Say thanks for your responses. Thanks for your opinions. We are not going that way. We are going another way, and here's why. That'll do something at least to protect the council's trust that they have with residents. So whenever whenever the council makes a decision, or the executive makes a decision, or an individual member makes a decision, which has already been asked of residents, what do you think about it? And that decision goes the other way. Just publish a statement on the website. That's all this motion's suggesting. It's saying, look, we've heard you, we have listened to you, we're not ignoring you. Here's why we're going a different way. Now, I don't see what harm that would do to any administration of whatever political colour. And I think residents would appreciate it. We don't want to see residents hitting social media, coming here tonight with petitions saying, you ignore us, you don't listen to us. That doesn't help any of us. It damages the relationship or the reputation of all politicians. So I don't really see why we can't support this motion. I hope that you'll give it the consideration it deserves, and when it eventually comes to executive, obviously we can have more of a chat about it there. But I would urge all colleagues in the chamber to support this in the interest of transparency and honesty with residents.
Thank you, Councillor McKinnon. As I say, we're not debating this tonight, but Councillor Brooks will explain what his position is now.
Well, that all sounds very reasonable. What isn't reasonable is trying to paint us as somebody, as an administration that ignores people, ignores consultation. I gave stats earlier this evening. They're still being worked on. I gave stats on budget consultations we did. I can repeat them. I won't because the night is getting late. I am confident that we are listening to people. I'm confident we're treating them with a great deal of respect, but you know, as well as I do, when you're in charge, you cannot do everything that people want. And we were looking into the consultations over 18 years, certainly 4 years that you seem to be prepared to stand up to, Councillor McKinnon. Sadly, there is not a register of the consultations in this authority. You'd think there might be, there isn't. So it's quite a lot of data mining. We're continuing that process. I think in the main, we do this already. We do this already. We publish an ID or a council decision. The consultation responses are in there. It's quite clear what people have said to us. And we have made a decision not based on what is a cohort of people who have responded. I'm glad they have, but I'll say it again, I've said it before, that a very well orchestrated opinion poll of people who don't want something to happen could outweigh a lot of people, the silent majority, who aren't well orchestrated to say we do want it to happen. That is a danger. That is a danger. And we are occasionally having to say, for the greater good, we need to follow on through this policy. Now, there are times, I haven't looked at opinion polls recently, but when the government in the 60s, I believe it was, they banned hanging. And for many, many, many years afterwards, opinion polls said, bring it back. Now, I don't think an opinion poll would say so now, but I've got to tell you, the government did the right thing. Had they gone by the opinion poll of public, they would have brought it back. So that's an extreme example, I'm not planning to hang anybody, but I will take this seriously. I think we do it already. I'm sure we do it already. Could we make it more clear? Possibly. Let's see how we work through this and bring it through to executive. But I will still continue to do my data mining, Councillor McKinnon. I think there may be something to be unpicked and unearthed there that I will bring back to the chamber. But thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor McKinnon.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. And we now come to the final motion on the agenda tonight. Motion by Councillor Marsh. Just to remind you the summary of what we're talking about before I invite him. Well, no, I'll do that later. Just carry on. Councillor Marsh, do you wish to move your motion?
Yes, I move, Chair.
Have a seconder?
Yes, I'll second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Culver. Right. Yes, could we have the amended motion, the key wording, which was in a supplementary document for us? So I will read that as well in case those watching on Zoom can't see it. It is, I think I've got the wrong one in front of me. Okay, it's on there. Request that the executive review its own investments and request that those of the Berkshire Pension Fund are reviewed to identify any direct or indirect holdings in companies that are supplying arms, military technology, or logistical support, which enables breaches of international law in Gaza. It does go on a little bit more, but I am required to ask the seconder if she accepts the amended motion.
Yes, I do, Chair.
I will now invite you to introduce the motion in full and in any way you want within 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your ruling as Chair of the Council to allow this motion to be debated today. The motion is about ethical investment, something which I believe our residents strongly support. Recipients of Berkshire Pension Fund mentions, including people in this chamber, are entitled to believe that we've taken care to ensure that the fund has been managed to the highest ethical standards. This was a motive for the attempt by opposition councillors a few years ago, as they then were, to persuade the council to take similar action by pressing the Berkshire Pension Fund to disinvest from fossil fuel companies. Sadly, Liberal Democrat and Green members were outvoted on that occasion. Why are we calling for divestment now? Well, the Green Party was the first UK political party to call for a ceasefire in Gaza. Our view then and now was that the abhorrent attack by Hamas on 7th of October 2023 did in no way justify indiscriminate attacks by the Israeli Defence Force on civilians, killing tens of thousands, including many, many children. Among the hundreds of international organisations that have joined the United Nations in condemning Israel's assault on Gaza as genocide are Amnesty International, the International Association of Genocide Scholars, Christian Aid, Human Rights Watch, Médecins Sans Frontières and Reporters Without Borders. The International Criminal Court has issued arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu and his former defence minister for the alleged use of starvation as a weapon of warfare. In addition to inducing famine, the Israeli government stands accused of collective punishment, destruction of schools and hospitals, shooting and bombing civilians, including children, using chemical weapons on civilians and sexual violence. Nearly all the children in Gaza are malnourished and traumatized. According to the UN, more than 240 Palestinian journalists had been killed in Gaza by August 2025. That's more than the total number of journalists who died in 2 world wars and all other 20th century conflicts combined. The intentional targeting of journalists, which Israel admits, is a war crime. In addition, hundreds of aid workers and thousands of health workers have been killed and doctors abducted and tortured. As of 7th of October 2025, over 70,000 people, 68,000 Palestinians and about 2,000 Israelis have been reported killed in Gaza and more than 150,000 injured, according to the Gaza Health Ministry and the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The true figure will be much higher. In addition, at least 1,000 Palestinians in the illegally occupied West Bank have been killed. The Conservative chair of the Commons Foreign Affairs Select Committee said last year that the committee had received internal legal advice that Israel had broken international law. This has not stopped the government selling arms to Israel, conducting RAF surveillance missions on behalf of Israel, or in the case of our Prime Minister, defending Israel's right to deny energy and water to the people of Gaza. Channel 4 News recently reported that 281 units of an unspecified item worth £400,000 were sent from the UK to Israel as recently as June 2025. The shipment was recorded under a category titled Bombs, Grenades, Torpedoes, Mines, Missiles and Similar Munitions of War, Cartridges and Other Ammunition and Projectiles and Parts thereof. I don't know about you, fellow members, but I would not want my pension funded by companies suspected of complicity in war crimes. According to the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign, the Berkshire Pension Fund invests £134.8 million in companies enabling or profiting from the genocide, military occupation and apartheid against Palestinians. This includes companies supplying Israel with weapons and military technology and those involved in the construction of Israel's illegal settlements in the West Bank. Many local authorities have already done what we are proposing tonight. For example, North Somerset Council, led by a Liberal Democrat and run by a coalition of Lib Dem, Green, Labour and independent councillors, earlier this year passed a motion calling on the Avon Pension Fund to divest from companies that facilitate Israel's breaches of international law. Councils that have taken similar steps all this year alone include Bristol, Cardiff, Lewisham, Norwich, Oxford, Kingston upon Thames, Dudley, Sandwell, Peterborough and Tower Hamlets. Some have gone further and aim to divest altogether from companies involved in arms manufacture and the arms trade. Divestment was part of the international campaign that brought apartheid to an end in South Africa. Divestment has been part of the international campaign against Russian-owned or controlled companies over the invasion of Ukraine. Amid the horror of what has been happening in Gaza, people want to do something but feel helpless. This is a small way for this council to do the right thing. I do hope members will support the motion. Thank you, Chair.
I should have said before I invited Councillor Marsh to speak. I mean, you've probably got the gist of it anyway. That the council will debate this motion this evening, and the reason I decided on it is my decision whether these motions are taken on the night. Is that if I think most of us have had our social media inputs feeds absolutely dominated by this issue, whatever our particular views. And I did seek the advice of the monitoring officer, and that was why the amendment was that the motion was slightly changed. It does not refer to any particular nation. It refers to international law, and it's specific about what has been dominating the public debate, which is Gaza. And this is not a party political issue. So I look forward, members, to a very good debate now in the half hour I'm going to allow, which focuses on what this council can do, because that's what I, as a councillor, and I'm sure many of you as a councillor, are saying, what can you do? Well, all that is within our gift really is to look at our own investments. And so at some stage in the debate, I'm looking forward to the relevant portfolio holders to contribute. But I'm now going to call on Councillor McKinnon as the first one to put his hand up, and then Councillor Cottam.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I remember the motion that Councillor Marsh talked about a few years ago. At the time, I thought that the referral of the Berkshire Pension Fund's investments was, at the time, a bit of a spurious excuse to use the council as a debating chamber for national and indeed international issues. I suspect that may be the case again. But seeing as we're here, the report that's referred to in the preamble to the motion, so not the part was amended, there was a 3-person panel that made that report, and that report's not been accepted by the United Kingdom government or the European Union. Now, of course, the competing political and historical and religious claims of Arabs and Jews to the land known as Israel go back to biblical times. They certainly didn't begin in 1948 or 1967. And there's always two sides to every story, no matter how horrible that story is. What we do know is that Hamas, the elected government of Gaza, since the elections in 2006, there's never been an election since, of course, murdered 1,200 Israelis on the 7th of October 2023, raped women and girls, burned families alive, took 251 hostages, many of whom were later murdered. And Israel went to war with Gaza to eliminate Hamas's ability to repeat that. Hamas's constitution calls for the death of all Jews. And as long as Hamas exists, Israel is not safe. We've all seen the horrific scenes from Gaza. We know that Hamas used their civilians as human shields to maximise casualties for propaganda purposes. We know that Hamas locate military headquarters in hospitals and schools. The first casualty of war is the truth. I don't find information from Hamas or the Israeli government or the United Nations particularly trustworthy on many occasions, and this is no exception. What I am certain of is that if Israel, the only democracy in the Middle East, the world's only Jewish state, lacked the means to defend itself, within days it would cease to exist. October the 7th would happen all over Israel as its enemies slaughtered its citizens. So no, I do not support restricting the supply of military technology to Israel, and I support the Berkshire Pension Fund continuing to hold those investments in those companies in line with UK government advice and legislation. Thank you.
Councillor Cottam and then Councillor Carter.
Thank you, Chairman. As the representative on Berkshire pension funds, I would like to say that this is already in play within the committees of the actual fund. It was kicked off by a communication from a Lewis Bacon, a Palestine solidarity campaign, which is a little controversial in itself. But it has, I think, I personally have been horrified and stand here trembling a little bit with the absolute murderous actions of sometimes, I have to say, both parties. And I think we need to try and do something. And I think the fund will actually do something. Why do I say that? Because basically it's not a monolithic, unresponsive to the community concerns, but it engages already with things, for example, with Coca-Cola on sustainability of sourcing their products, on Glencore mining and its water management and sustainability. Even with Honda, you know, I mean, you think of that as respectable companies and their electric vehicles and the concerns about human rights on some of the components. And I look at China and their magnets on this particular one. So they responded rapidly to this comment and said, well, yes, we have a global investment fund. And those include Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, Palantir, IBM, Caterpillar, and Volvo. You know, and we can't actually say, do they do business with the Israeli government? Well, I mean, if you've got Windows, you probably have, but this is a tiny part of their business. Even British Aerospace, which I think was implied in some of the comments. Well, this is one of the biggest supporters of Ukraine. Are we going to criticize them if they are acting legally? And this is one of the points that I'm concerned about is international law. It's a very broad band label for something that really, as a pension fund, we are regulated under UK law, and we respect the government's international agreements and such like. So, you know, there is concern and they are taking action, and I do support the motion, although I think maybe it goes a little bit too far in some ways with international law and such like. I'm glad it's not just Israel, because as Councillor McKinnon has pointed out, Hamas have blood all over their hands as well.
You have to conclude now, Councillor Cotton.
So
time's up.
I think I've already said I have many, many papers, and I just approve that this is already happening at the meeting of December the 8th. And
Thank you.
I will promote this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cotton. Councillor Carter.
Sorry, hi there. Yeah, I was just going to say I totally hear what's been said on both sides of this. I mean, I think the focus on this is on establishing whether companies are breaching international law or not. And if we establish they are, then the council probably is obliged under human rights and ethical investment standards to divest from them. But I think that's the point, and I think the motion is saying that, although I hadn't studied the rewrite of it. So to block such decisions would raise questions about the democratic freedom and local accountability. I mean, what I don't know is what the public's opinion of it is. We talked about consultations earlier. I can't honestly say I might have a gut instinct, but I would like us to focus on the legal aspects of this, and on that basis, I think I'm okay to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Chairman. What goes on and has gone on is an absolute tragedy. No question about it. It's incomprehensible what has gone on. But there are two sides to that, and there is blame on both sides. If you were an Israeli, 1948 onwards, you'd probably be quite paranoid with all your neighbours saying you shouldn't exist, you should be destroyed. But then when you defend yourself, you can go too far as well. This is an absolute tragedy. It would be easier to say this is too difficult. It would be easier to say we can't really unravel all of this because, as Councillor Cotton said, we could be talking about Microsoft Windows, keeping PCs going and networks going. But that would be, I think, wrong. I think this is a policy we should adopt. I think it is balanced in terms of it does say breaches of international law in Gaza. That means any breaches by any one band or body, country, nation. And therefore, I will support it. It's a free vote on this side because it's so tense and so, I say, finely balanced. We will obviously bring back to council within 3 months progress made because, again, you know, it talks about logistical support, military technology, supplying arms which enable breaches of international law. We have to be able to link what these investment companies, investment vehicles are doing. And sometimes we know they're highly bundled. You don't just go along and invest in British aerospace. You might do that through a fund. It's quite a lot to unravel. But the principle of this motion is, in my view, appropriate, and it is harder to do something like this than easier to say how difficult it is to do. So I will be supporting it. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, Councillor Brooks, this is a terrible, terrible series of events that has been ongoing for the past 2 years and for years prior. It's an intractable problem, one that is going to persist, I'm sure. What worries me about this motion is it feels like, and I think it will be seen as, censuring the Israeli effort to protect their borders. Where is the motion that censures Hamas and its supporters? There's nothing been brought forward. So I don't want to be in a position to choose between two sides. It's terrible warfare. It's terrible for the children. It's been terrible for the Israeli victims. I won't be supporting this motion.
Councillor Poole.
Apologies for the delay in standing. I don't know what my excuse is. I think my chair got caught. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight on this motion, although I'm very pleased that Councillor Marsh has brought it forward. I do have to very politely correct my colleague, Councillor McKinnon. There were a number of travesties that have happened over the last few years, and I think it is somewhat remiss to target people who are fighting with sticks and stones, where their aggressors are using guns. And I think that is a decision that a lot of people have made to buy better, to choose an ethical standing and buy from a different vendor who has the same beliefs. Within my family, we have chosen different crisps, we have chosen different drinks, and I myself and my husband as well, we have chosen different pension investments of our own. And I support the members, I support the people who are asking for this because it will affect them as well. And I completely agree that by making this a change, it also affects other people. And I think if it was happening to us, I would like to think that there are other people in the world who would say, you know what, I agree that this is bad. And I would like to be able to do something. And I think if this is what we can do, and there are other councils that are doing it, I think that we are right to do this. Pardon? Well, you said that the Hamas killed 1,200 people. And it is true, that is true. So Hamas was elected as a duly elected council in 2006. And in retaliation...
Can we address remarks to the chair and not to one another? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I would quite happily pick it up with Councillor McKinnon offline.
Point of order, Chairman. Councillor Poole said she was correcting me. I just want to know what I said which was untrue.
I'll tell you what was said was untrue. It is the fact that some of those killed on the 7th of October 2023 were killed mistakenly, perhaps, by the Israeli army themselves, some of them.
You're saying that Hamas didn't kill 1,200 Israelis?
I'm saying that 1,200 Israelis died as a result on that day of an invasion of Israel by Hamas.
It's going to get out of hand here, Chairman.
That's slightly different. From Israeli sources, by the way.
So can I get clarification on what I said, which was untrue, from Councillor Poole?
Gladly so. So Hamas was elected as a duly elected parliament and was in retaliate. They were the Israel elected party retaliated, and that's what escalated the cause and effect. Pardon?
That's enough, Councillor McKinnon, please. I think let's get on with substantive debate. Councillor Somner.
Thank you, Chairman. I similarly wasn't going to speak on this. But my understanding when we started this conversation was that it was about international law. It clearly is not about international law. This is about Gaza, this is about Israel, this is about Palestinians. And therefore, I don't understand why we have let it descend into that specific debate. The point of this, and I take Councillor Brooks' point of view on doing a review, is that what we appear to be suggesting is any organisation which may support any conflict across the world, whatever colour flag they're flying, then we back out. We make sure that the Berkshire Pension Fund backs out specifically, or that we back out of our investments. This is not and should not be about this specific conflict, as far as I'm concerned. I understood that to be the basis of the conversation, and it appears not to be. So if we're going to talk about what reviews are taking place currently already underway, as Councillor Cottam has suggested,
Yeah, may I
then
just point of information, that is exactly, it's not identifying a single country or organisation, because it can change. No, we're talking about.
I will
sorry, my
clarify,
understanding of
I will
Gaza
make my
is
own
the
clarification based upon the motion that is in front of us. It does talk about only breaches of international law in Gaza. I think what would be the consequence of this, if this motion was carried through, and it is going to go to exec for a discussion on what, practically speaking, we can do, it would look like a precedent for future conflicts, though. And I think the key issue is international law and what we can do when breaches of international law occur as a council. Just so happens that the issue at the moment in the public mind is largely Gaza related.
And
carry on if you like.
Whilst I accept the international law element, Chairman, that is not what is being debated. If we use this as the most topical thing, then we need to open up the newspapers, we need to open up the world, and we need to find out every other conflict that's taking place. Everything else which goes against any international law. That is not what this motion is saying.
Members, I see no other hands up. Oh, Councillor Taylor, yes.
Yeah, I can see that, there's some disagreement with regards to the wording, but I will be supporting the motion. And I'd really like to add that I've certainly been contacted by quite a number of residents in my ward over the past year, usually in writing, on this issue. And it was also coming up on the doorstep even this weekend when I was canvassing, where two families raised this with me. And I did actually tell them that this motion was coming up here today, and they welcomed the fact that we were going to be discussing this. Now, I have to say, I've also had some correspondence earlier in the year. I've had some correspondence with our chief executive on this, and I know this was being looked into. So I welcome the motion. I can see that there's some concerns around the wording, but I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Very much. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Before I move to ask the seconder to summate, I had my own two interventions, explanatory, if I may say. I would like to put my own views into this debate because I think I may be the only one who was sentient when the 1956 invasion was blocked, the Suez operation, where there was, this issue was coming up not long after the 1948 decision to create the state of Israel. And remember, that was started when the Israeli side were the terrorists, not the others. So this is a long, long history. And frankly, I supported the Israelis in the 1972 incident, when shortly after that I joined the army. But for about 20 years, I personally have been boycotting Israeli goods because they have completely ignored international law and resolutions by the UN, and I've always been a great supporter of the UN. But coming back to the motion before us tonight, of course, we've gone way beyond Gaza. We've way beyond dealing with investments and with the pension fund. But my reason for bringing this to the debate is because of the very high level of public interest and the feeling that our residents deserve to hear a debate on something which we have skin in the game for. Now, it's going to be a very difficult discussion at executive and with the officer's advice as to what in practice we can do. But I have twice attended the vigil now in the marketplace in Newbury calling for peace, where people from all sides, I have to admit mainly in support of Gaza, were there, but on the day that the government acknowledged or accepted the state of Israel, recognized the state of Israel, I made a special journey over there and spoke in thanking that some movement towards peace looked as though it may happen. Goodness knows how long this will take. We've been here with the Oslo Accords and it's very difficult. But our whole world depends on there being a recognized framework of international law. And at the moment, all over the world, we're not seeing that. But Gaza is the thing that focuses minds at the moment. So I will read out the whole motion later on before we come to the vote. But can we now move to the seconder of the motion, Councillor Culver? Your contribution then, please, summation from the mover, Councillor Marsh.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. Thank you to everyone who's participated in the debate. When I was a school child and I studied previous genocides, I couldn't get my head around how human beings could allow it to happen. I think that's even more the case now that we're seeing this happen in real time. We're seeing it on the news, we're reading it in our newspapers, we're seeing it on social media. Every time we go onto social media, there's more and more material. So I think we have even less excuse in this day and age to witness a genocide, but to not do all that we can to try and end it and to also not invest in the people who are perpetrating it. I think ultimately, I mean, we've talked this evening about, going back to the 40s and so on. Ultimately, this country has a lot to blame about this. We had the Balfour Agreement, we had the Sykes-Picot line, where they literally just drew a straight line across the whole of the Middle East. And it's that kind of entitled colonial attitude towards that area of the world that has led to so many of the problems that we see now. People in Newbury this evening had their 103rd peace vigil, and I'd like to thank the chairman and also the Bishop of Reading who came to the 100th peace vigil 3 weeks ago. And those have attracted people of all faiths and none and all ages, including children and grandparents. At the last count, I think about 17 councils have passed a similar motion to this. What I think is interesting about Gaza, it's only 25 miles long and 7.5 miles wide at its widest point. So that's the equivalent of here to Oxford and here to Kintbury. And yet 200,000 tonnes worth of explosives have been dropped on that small area. That has resulted in mass loss of life. As of the 1st of October, it was 67,000 Palestinians in Gaza that had been killed, including medical staff, aid workers and journalists. 38 major hospitals have been destroyed and 96 medical centres. 170,000 people have been wounded, 20,000 children under the age of 13, and 56,000 children have lost one or both parents. More than 90% of Palestinians in Gaza have been displaced, most of them multiple times. So I would appeal to members, please, and I'm happy we're having an open debate and a free vote this evening. Please, let's do all that we can. We can't do a great deal here, but this is something that we can do. We can look at our pensions. And quite frankly, I would rather live on a bit less in the future than know that my pension has been paid for through the suffering of other people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Culver. Councillor Marsh, do you wind up the debate, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. Just for the benefit of the point that Councillor Sumner raised, the motion specifically mentions Gaza. It's about what's been happening in Gaza. I'm not equating this with what awful things may be happening elsewhere in the world, although I did mention divestment in South Africa during the apartheid years and divestment in Russia now in response to the invasion of Ukraine. So it's not only there are plenty of places where bad things happen, probably nowhere else as Councillor Culver has just indicated, where what the United Nations calls, and all those other organisations I mentioned, call a genocide on this kind of scale. It's not 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. Just to reiterate the figures, 68,000 Palestinians dead, 2,000 Israelis. We regret the deaths of all those people. But what do you think accounts for that discrepancy? It's because one group of people have been bombed, shot, starved, and generally been subject to what seems pretty clear from what virtually every respected international organisation that works in this field. There are loads of others I could have mentioned, Oxfam. There are loads of other organisations that have said what we're saying tonight. Now, just to mention that local people are affected. I mean, I spoke today to someone in my ward, a Palestinian in my ward. He lost a family member in the Gaza Strip, shot in the street. He lost numerous friends who were the result of victims of an airstrike in Gaza itself. Now, I don't want to get. I deliberately tried to keep this really dispassionate because I don't think it's helpful to get too emotional. Well, Chair, do we have to listen to these constant mumblings on here?
Carry on, and we will please have silence amongst the other ranks. Thank you. On both sides, out of respect for the speaker.
The Guardian, my former newspaper, ran a piece a couple of weeks ago on the website, and it was headlined, "Young Lives Cut Short on an Unimaginable Scale, the 18,457 children on Gaza's list of war dead." Sorry, well, this, dear God. Okay, I'm going to stop speaking. 18,000 children, Clive. I hope you'll vote for the motion. I know emotions are obviously running quite high. I've tried to avoid that. I think it's a real measure that we can take, as we've heard from Councillor Cotter, measure we can take to do something to make the world a better place, and that's something that the council can do, and vote for this tonight, and I hope you will. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. What we're actually voting on the amended motion. The council is to resolve to request that the executive review its own investments and request that those of the Berkshire Pension Fund are reviewed to identify any direct or indirect holdings in companies that are supplying arms, here we go, military technology or logistics support, which enable breaches of international law in Gaza, and to work with its asset managers to take steps to end such investments, and strongly request through its representative that the Berkshire Pension Fund does the same, and then to report back to council within 3 months on the progress made. That is what we are asked to vote on. Can we have the vote carried out in the usual way? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
What does it wish to say? I've just read what we're voting on.
I have a question of you, Chairman, about the conduct of the vote, if I may.
Yes, you may. I think according to the Constitution.
Thank you. This evening, you've challenged the scale of the murders, the Hamas murders in Gaza. Across the border in Israel. You've also stated that you are active in campaigning through your boycott of Israeli goods against the Israeli state. And I just wondered whether you think you are you're objective enough to take part in this vote, or whether you should excuse yourself from the vote.
I will excuse myself from the vote. I'm quite happily. I think you made a good case for that. Thank you. Right. Okay. Can we carry on, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Can I please therefore ask members to indicate by raising their hand if they are in support of the proposal that is currently showing on the screen? So all those in favour? Okay. Thank you. And those against? And any abstentions? Thank you. I can confirm, Chairman, that that motion has been carried.
Thank you very much. Yes, Councillor Constant, I think I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, Chairman, I'd like to propose that according to Procedure Rule Part 3 at Rule 10.8, that we extend the meeting to 10:30 or 10:45 at your discretion.
So that it's not me that's perhaps sick because I have an interest in getting to bed. Right. I think Councillor Marsh, you had your hand up first. Is that right? No, wasn't you? All right. Councillor Brooks did. Councillor Brooks, thank you. Could I ask for those in favour of extending until 10:30? We are actually legally allowed to go on until 11:15, I'm told by the, but you, no, well, it's really up to those who are asking the questions, I think, and to some extent those who answer them. So we move on to members' questions. And question A is from Councillor Clive Taylor. Can we have the questions up on the board as soon as possible?
My legs are getting a bit too stiff on these chairs. Yeah, okay, cool. Right, so I will answer the question. It's on the screen. So thank you, Councillor Taylor, for your question. Redibus continue to maintain a presence within West Berkshire. However, they've recently confirmed that they are unable to extend their community transport service beyond that which they already are providing. West Berkshire Council currently offer an annual community transport revenue grant of £55,280, which is distributed between local community transport operators. And under this formula, under formula, so it's divvied out according to that. Redibus have been one of 12 groups to receive support through this grant scheme in 25-26. The council also offered a capital grant of £50,000 for operators to bid for support through every other year, with the next offer available in 26-27. The council have also made a financial offer to Redibus to settle the historic revenue grant allocations and right the wrongs of the previous Conservative administration. Opportunities to register to tender for other client passenger transport operations have been and continue to be extended to Redibus. In the meantime, residents, including those in Tilehurst, Birch, Copse, can review details of other community transport operators serving their local area through our webpage, or contact the transport@westberks.gov.uk team for further signposting, advice and support. The council regularly meets with groups through the Community Transport Forum to check for any changes to levels of support offered and ensure that all areas of West Berkshire are covered by community transport. Do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, thank you for the reply.
Could you sound, please, Councillor Taylor? Sorry, I know it's late in the evening.
My apologies. Yeah, thanks for the reply. Could we have a meeting to discuss this? You said rather a lot there, some of which I recognise. I have been speaking directly with Redibus about this.
I think we've had supplementary there, Councillor Taylor. Could we have a meeting?
Can we have a meeting?
Yes, and I would add one more thing, which is that we recently wrote to 400 properties in the Royal Avenue and Garston Crescent area, just to help with the affected rerouting of the Service 15 bus. But happy to have a conversation on Redibus more wider.
Yep.
Councillor Reid has question B on the agenda as set. To be answered by Councillor Pemberton.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks for your question, Councillor Reid.
Reid, you can sit down.
The important role that public houses play, particularly in rural communities, and supports their attention where mechanisms are available to do so. Pubs can be nominated as an asset of community value, allowing them to be listed by the local authority if their current or recent further use furthers the social well-being or interests of the community. Once listed, if the owner decides to sell, a moratorium period enables community groups to prepare a bid, although the owner is not obliged to sell to them. While assets of community value status does not restrict planning permissions, it can be a material consideration in planning decisions, and this listing lasts for 5 years. The council also has a policy in the recently adopted local plan that supports the retention and expansion of local community facilities, including public houses, where they meet the relevant criteria. In addition, our economic development team supports both existing and new businesses seeking to locate in the area through various initiatives aimed at promoting economic growth. While there are occasions where businesses such as public houses may no longer be viable, this is ultimately a decision for the business owner. Nevertheless, the council remains committed to working proactively with communities and partners to support valued local assets and encourage sustainable opportunities for growth and resilience. You'll also be aware as well, Councillor Reid, that we recently commenced work on our cross-party approach to viable villages, which I believe you were a part of, as well as some members opposite. And I do want us to encourage all manner of approaches to supporting and enabling our pubs, but not just our pubs, all treasured community assets in our rural villages and hamlets. Thank you. Do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do. And thank you very much for that very clear answer. Will the portfolio holder and leader of the council be willing to write to the government to recognise this need and help on business rates relief, particularly those leaseholders who have to pay for the maintenance of listed buildings? And I mean, planning wise, grade 2 type, grade 1 listed. The provision of community facilities, recognition that well-established pubs, often hundreds of years old, need enhanced planning rights in the NPPF to maintain viability and profitability as commercial hosting needs change.
So, Councillor Reid, the answer to your question is yes, absolutely. It's hard enough running a business at the moment anyway. And we know that pubs, public houses run on very, very tight margins without also having to deal with some of the issues that you've raised, obviously, in your question and supplementary. So the answer is yes, absolutely. Thanks.
Question C now is from Councillor Ross McKinnon.
Yes, thank you, Councillor McKinnon. Because the service starts partway through the year and income is split across financial years. So for 22-23, the net income attributed is just over £1.7 million. For the current subscription period, the service has currently raised just over £1.9 million. Do you have a supplementary question?
I do, but before I get there, do you have the number of residents as well, which is also part of that first question?
No, I don't. Sorry, I must admit I completely missed that bit. So no, I don't.
Okay. Looking at the cash that's being raised then, that's an increase of 11.76%. Can you tell me how that meets the definition of phasing out?
Yes, I think we've been over this one a few times, but what I will say is under this new scheme, 52% of residents are actually paying less for their green bin than they were under control of the Conservative administration. Thank you for your question.
Question D from Councillor Dominic Burke.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Burke. We currently have around 100 new specialist places that have been delivered or are in progress of being delivered across the programme, and a number of new and extended resource bases in the process of being developed in mainstream schools. Despite this progress, demand continues to rise, and we estimate a further 80 to 100 specialist places will be required in the next 12 to 18 months to meet sufficiency needs and reduce the use of out-of-area placements. To address this, we are embedding our ordinarily available provision guidance across all schools to strengthen inclusion, reduce escalation, and ensure mainstream settings can meet a wider range of needs locally. We also have a dedicated resource who is leading on identifying and developing solutions and delivering short-term additional capacity through school reconfigurations. This combined approach of expanding specialist places and strengthening mainstream inclusion will both help reduce the backlog and build long-term sustainability in West Berkshire's SEND system. Thank you. Do you have a supplementary?
Thank you. I do have a supplementary, but I wish you'd answered my question. You gave a very interesting and comprehensive description of what is being done. My question is around the backlog. You have not been spending the money that you plan to spend. So my question was, what is the backlog and what effect this is having on what effect is this having on our children and young people? Please answer that.
The only backlog we have is on Brookfields, which is now back in train, and that's had about an 18-month hold up, but that is now back on the programme and is happening. We had a few months delay on Castle, but that will be delivered at the end of this year. We're also looking at Dingley's additional places, Westwood Farm, Spurcroft. We've delivered at Castle at Thiel, Kennet Valley and Kennet PDR. It does have an impact on the young people, I agree, but we are working hard to mitigate that. There's a lot of work going on trying to keep children in their local schools and being supported there. And yes, I agree, there is an impact on young people, but we're doing what we can to stop it.
Question E from Councillor McKinnon to Councillor Clark to reply.
Thank you, Chair. All urgent work at the council is responded to without a wait. This includes urgent packages of care, discharges from hospital and safeguarding concerns. We have, however, seen an increase in waiting times for non-urgent work from 27 days to 44 days in this period, in the last period. The increase is due to a number of factors. 2023 saw increased staffing levels due to post-COVID funding from central government, but this additional funding is no longer available, and as a result, staffing levels have dropped. There are also more older people, which is a good thing, obviously, but they have more complex needs, and together with the 25% increase in safeguarding concerns, there are a number of factors impacting on waiting times. Every contact with adult social care is assessed to determine the levels of risk. Further work is underway to ensure that we are supporting people effectively on contact to connect people to community assets and to reduce the need for further intervention. Of course, we want to reduce waiting times. This was in our big six to fix. We want to do this quickly, but at the moment we have to prioritise those that are most in need. Do you have a supplementary?
I do. Thank you, Councillor Clark, for the information. As you said there, it was a headline manifesto commitment of yours. Will you commit to reporting back on that KPI at regular intervals, and ideally have it as part of the KPI pack that we have at the regular quarterly updates?
I can commit to reporting back on that. Whether it's a KPI or not, it's a different matter, but I will report back.
Question F from Councillor McKinnon. No, sorry, Councillor Bowick. I'm misreading there. Councillor Bowick. Councillor Gourley is definitely the one answering it.
Yes, thank you for the question, Councillor Burke. Renewables and energy delivery is an extremely busy market at present, and officers have unfortunately struggled to procure the services of a contractor to build the site out. We have recently been working with a framework that specialises in the delivery of renewable energy schemes, and we hope to be in a position to make an announcement in the very near future with a view to starting construction in the new year. Do you have a supplementary?
Again, you didn't quite answer my question. When is it expected to be operational? When?
I will read the last bit, which is started construction in the new year.
It's not operational.
Not operational.
I'm
construction.
My question is, when will it be operational?
Well, we haven't got to that part of the build out bit, have we? We've got to appoint a contractor, do the scale of works, and go from there. No, we'll start construction in the new year, and obviously operational will be a key part of that metric to deliver. Well, we haven't got a supplier yet, so I don't. You look into the future. What does your crystal ball tell me, Councillor Bowick?
Chairman, the muttering.
Okay.
The round across the
don't know is an acceptable answer. Let's take
inappropriate.
that. Thank you, Councillor Brooks. We are now up to Councillor McKennon's question G. Councillor Foot.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. The cumulative capital expenditure to date since May 2023 is £561,000. Revenue costs are approximately £18,000. Do you have a supplementary question?
Councillor Foots? No, I do not. Thank you.
Then we move on to your next question, Councillor McKinnon. Councillor H, question to be answered by Councillor Gourley.
Yes, the 150k saving identified in 25-26 budget from reducing black bin waste collections to 3 weekly will be realised through the payment mechanism within the waste contract. This mechanism adjusts payments based on service volumes and performance. The saving will be achieved through reduced residual waste tonnage, lowering disposal and haulage costs. And that also increased capture of dry recycling, boosting income through material sales. Do you have a supplementary question?
I do. Thank you, Councillor Gourley. May I see that provision from the waste contract? I'll say not now, but I'd like to have a look at it, please.
Yeah, I'm sure I can absolutely ask officers to reach out with that one.
Question I from Councillor McKinnon to be answered by Councillor Pemberton.
Yes, Councillor McKinnon, thank you very much for your question. Councillor McKinnon, you will be aware that we receive a great number of questions from members of the public, and I don't think it would be too much of a stretch to say that sometimes there is a pattern amongst those questions, and those questions tend to come from a small number of individuals. And as an administration, we do our utmost to ensure that we answer those questions and provide the information that's being sought from us. But I'm sure you'll also appreciate as well that where in some of those council and executive meetings we're receiving lots and lots of questions, it's always going to be difficult to get through those in the time allowed. Members of the public are always free to contact the relevant portfolio holder if they have a query on something, or council officers for that matter, and we would encourage them to do so where they are seeking information. Do you have a supplementary question?
I do. Thank you, Councillor Pemberton. I actually timed your answer to that question the last executive meeting. It was actually over 6 minutes, 6 minutes 20. And there was a raft of questions to get through. I just wonder, do you think that was really the best way of managing those questions on that night, spending 6 minutes and 20 seconds just answering one?
I don't think it would be right and proper, Councillor McKinnon, to sweep over the specifics of that individual question, because obviously the individual that answered that question isn't here tonight. There was a fair amount of information and detail that needed to be covered, I felt, given the nature of the question and the information being sought. So I'm happy with the answer that I gave, Councillor McKinnon. I'm sorry that you're not, but I'd respectfully point out as well, I've gone back and I've looked through the tapes. There's evidence. When your administration were in charge prior to 2023, there were plenty of examples where some members of your then front bench treated the public with, I don't think it would be too far of a stretch to say, absolute disdain. So with respect, I'm not going to take any lectures from you, Councillor McKinnon. Thank you.
And finally, Councillor J, question J, Councillor McKinnon, to be answered by Councillor Poole.
Thank you, Councillor McKinnon, for your question. So yes, scrutiny meeting was on the 16th of September, and the meeting that was to review the resource centres and what was going to happen was after that date. We knew that was going to happen after that date, which is why we set a placeholder in the meeting to say that this is what we think is going to happen, but an announcement will be made one way or the other the following week. Do you have a supplementary?
I didn't understand that answer at all.
Please allow me to clarify. You'd asked for the figure. So the figure of the 469 cost saving the resource centres remained in place for the resource centres, and it preceded the date at which the resource conclusion was announced. So the value was what we were working to, which was the value of the 469. Yes. It was in place for the scrutiny meeting on the 16th of September, and the meeting which was to review the conclusion of whether or not that was going to stay or remain regarding the eventuality, the conclusion of the resource centres project happened after that. So it remained in place because there wasn't a conclusion that we could draw from.
Right, okay, I think I understand now. So I think your answer there says that the cost saving hadn't been updated because the announcement hadn't been made yet. My question is, why did the report, which came to scrutiny on the 16th, why did the report's text preempt the announcement by Councillor Clark? So the text of the report had been updated, but the cost saving hadn't. Both of those were in the report on the 16th. One had been updated, one hadn't. Scrutiny didn't have the full picture.
I hear your comments, Councillor McKinnon. The report had, we couldn't get everyone in the right place at the right time to make all the necessary conclusions. We had made some assumptions based off of the information that we had in front of us so that we could present all the information that we could to scrutiny. Thank you.
That does conclude the business of this meeting, and I wish to thank everyone for their long-suffering attendance, and I formally close the meeting.
Please rise for the chairman of